Hello everybody, welcome to the Red Devil Experience. How you all doing? My name is Eric. Hope everybody is doing well. We have some live breaking news. Apparently, Bender will be starting in goal versus Newcastle. This is live breaking news right now. We're getting the updates saying that Andre Onana will be dropped for the next match. And yeah, it seems that he's going to be dropped and Biender's going to be playing in goal. This is the news that's coming out right now from Pete Hall and iPaper Sport. We have many more updates. We have to talk about Cunha and Delap. The transfers are heating up as well. We also have to talk about Rasmus, and we got to talk about Garnacho. So we're going to get into quite a lot of stuff, and we'll do a little bit of a freestyle because it is Friday night as well. So please smash that like button if you can. It helps us out very, very much, and we greatly appreciate it. So if you want to support us, the best thing you can do, two things: get in the live chat, get your thoughts and opinions in there, but also smash that like button. The like button helps us out immensely. So, and if you're new and you're not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe and make sure you have and you click that notification bell icon so you get the live noties when we go live, so you don't miss a show and you stay updated. But let's get straight into the news. We're gonna go in a little bit of chronological order, and then we'll get to the latest breaking news. But the day started off by this coming from Alex Crook saying that Manchester United have stepped up their pursuit of Parma goalkeeper Zion Suzuki, valued at 40 million. This is probably obviously because everybody is talking about Andre Onana at the current moment and how that he needs to be dropped / sold. And you know, he has been a goalkeeper that has been kind of mentioned, not too much, but has been mentioned here or there, sort of in the past. You know, I don't know much about him. I don't watch Parma, and I don't watch much Serie A, so I can't tell you if he is good or not. But we did get Onana from the Serie A. I don't know. I don't know how goalkeepers transition from one league to another. But if somebody or anybody in the chat or in the community have any thoughts or opinions on this guy, let me know, because I really don't know much about him. But it's just something that I wanted to introduce as the opener to the show. Let's get into the main part, which goes on to talk about Andre Onana. This was the news that came out sort of earlier in the day that's leading up to now even more people saying that he is actually going to be dropped. And this is Amorim is considering taking Onana out of the firing line at Newcastle, being there on standby after blunders in Lyon. Followed up by more updates about Andre Onana, saying Onana is set to be dropped for Manchester United's game against Newcastle on Sunday. Bender will start. Onana is expected to start against Lyon next week. This is the news that just broke right now as we were going live from Pete Hall and iPaper Sports. So this is what's being talked about as of right now. Apparently, Bender is going to start. Now, it might not necessarily... I mean, I think the media is going to latch on to the fact that, you know, he had the two blunders yesterday, the two mistakes that, you know, screwed up the game for us. But there's another piece of news, because Ruben Amorim did do a press conference. He was asked about rotation, and there has been sort of this sense of that United are probably going to do some sort of decently heavy rotation for the game against Newcastle, and then rotate back to the normal starting, I guess, strong team for the match against Lyon later on next week. So again, I think we have to take it as it goes, because maybe Bender, if he plays very well against Newcastle, maybe he starts against Lyon, and maybe this is, you know, maybe he decides to go in that direction, or maybe this was just sort of bad timing, planned sort of changes. I mean, you don't really rotate your goalkeeper. You know, the outfield players, it makes more sense. The goalkeeper, you don't really rotate. If anything, you would rotate them for a cup game. But considering that we're not in the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, there's not really any places to really rotate. The Premier League, while we want to finish as high as possible, I guess since the Europa League is of more importance, maybe you would rotate the goalkeeper in the Premier League match versus Newcastle. But I think you can make arguments for both sides. So I guess we got to see how it goes. But it is certainly interesting what is being said and what is coming out. So and then there was another update by Sam Mulucker saying Andre Onana is concerned he could be dropped by Ruben Amorim when Manchester United face Newcastle. The other update is that Ruben Amorim is set to make some changes to Manchester United's XI on Sunday. And this is what I was kind of talking about here, is that there is going to be some sort of rotation for Newcastle. I think it has to be done. As much as we want to play our strongest and starting team, I do think that we seem a bit tired. Some players do seem a bit tired. Some players are playing probably a ridiculous amounts of minutes with the lack of rotation due to the lack in the depth of squad. So, it makes sense that we would make some changes. We spoke about this yesterday after the match during the live show. We spoke about is there a possibility of rotation? Box, I think, was the one who was asking about the rotation. So, yeah, I mean, it does make sense. I don't know how much he's going to be able to change to keep us competitive with the options we have, but I guess we'll see how it goes. And then the last one before I get to the chat, Peter Schmeichel and a couple other people like Mike Phelan, but Peter Schmeichel did speak on Andre Onana as well. He had his 2 cents to say, and he said this about Onana, which wasn't the nicest, I guess, thing, but I guess it is true, and sometimes the truth is not nice. He did say, you never feel safe with Andre Onana between the posts. There are so many issues that Amorim needs to sort out. I would be very uncomfortable pointing to one player, but it's not great to watch. You never feel safe. You never feel like going 2-1 up. You always feel fear the other team are going to come back. And that is sort of true. I mean, Almo has been kind of saying that. Almo is in here in the chat as well as Lyle. Almo, we were talking about you yesterday. You weren't able to join us live, but we were talking about you yesterday. We were talking about the goalkeeper, and we were talking about how you've been banging on for the past couple shows about how you do believe he is the number one liability, or the number one problem at Manchester United, and you would remove him first. And I kind of said that Matic was right, but also Almo was right as well. Now obviously many people know Matic much more than Almo, but Almo was making some points here, and after yesterday, I gotta hold my hands up and say that maybe you were a lot more right than I was agreeing with you in the first place, because I mean that loss yesterday, and that sort of, I mean, it wasn't a loss, but again, it feels like a loss. But that's sort of just blowing the win. I mean, it has the potential for us to be knocked out. Now, I don't think we're going to get knocked out. I think we should be winning the match at Old Trafford versus Lyon. I think we played away. It was sort of a tough game. It wasn't slightly straightforward, but I think we were still the better team. And I think we did actually deserve to win that if it wasn't for the mistakes of our goalkeeper, who let us down and let his teammates down and let the club down. So, I think that just we will win. We will pass on to the next round, but it has put us sort of in a position, instead of being 2-1 up and playing the match at Old Trafford, or, in my mind, both goals should have never happened. They didn't create enough to score 2 goals. They had one very good chance with Tolisso, and that was about it. So, it could have been 2-0, and we could have went 2-0 back to Old Trafford, and we should have been in cruise control. But now it's a little bit of a tighter match, maybe a little bit more nervy, a little bit more pressure, and it's just it's uncalled for. So, but almost said, I told you about Onana, with 2 laughing faces. He did. And almost said the goalkeeper had 8 errors in the Champions League and Europa League. Now he needs to go. He's dreadful. Well, yeah, I mean, we did speak about that. I mean, this isn't his first time. I did say this yesterday. I was very, very furious with him yesterday. I think along with the entire rest of the United fan base. But, one of the things that we were talking about was his sort of mentality, to handle pressure and to stay focused during matches. And he seems to have some sort of problems with that one way or another. Another thing that I dislike heavily that he has done since he's come here is that he does these press conferences or these statements to the press, and he talks a big game. And every time I feel like it's happened more than a couple times for sure. Every time he does these sort of these statements to the press, he talks a big game, and then he goes in the game and he plays like absolute crap. So I don't like that either, because I don't like people that talk big and can't really back it up. I'd rather just have them shut their mouth and do their talking on the pitch, like I do with every single player. I don't like, I said the same thing. I don't like when Rashford was doing the PR and he was playing like crap on the pitch. I don't like, things like that. I didn't like it when Maguire was doing it, when he was the captain and he was playing absolutely horrible and he kept going to the press and talking to the press and making these statements. We don't want to hear it. We just want to see it at the end of the day. That's the main thing. Especially when we're not in a good place. Just stop the talking, because the talking sounds like excuses, and just show it on the pitch and we will back you. And you don't have to make any statements. You don't have to, say some ridiculous things that is going to make you look like a complete idiot and a fool after the match. Just have a strong performance and people will praise you. And you literally don't have to say words. It's just actions. And we just want actions on the pitch. So, Lyle says, in hindsight, yeah, Suzuki should have been the main target back when. Well, I don't know much about him, so. But Lyle says, the league is done, so it'd be good to rotate this weekend, maybe give some youngsters some minutes with an eye on Lyon at Old Trafford. Well, yeah, fair point. I don't know. I feel a little bit mixed about it, because I still want us to be strong. And I want us to compete, and I don't want us to get rolled over like we talked yesterday. I don't want us to lose 3-0 to Newcastle. I still want to win the match. So I feel like we have to do sort of a mix rotation. I don't think you can go too heavy with the rotation, but I think for sure I would drop Rasmus out of the squad and put in Xerxes, and Xerxes should play the match versus Newcastle, but also the match versus Lyon. He should be, in my opinion, Xerxes should start from now to the end of the season, and Rasmus should become the backup or the bench player, and coming off the bench at the very least. I think that's quite clear and obvious. For the one that Rasmus is struggling very, very heavily, and he has absolutely no confidence. He has zero confidence in himself, his abilities, or anything like that. So I think, for two reasons. One, because Rasmus isn't performing, but also because Rasmus is drowning. And we need to sort of take Rasmus out of the firing line. I think it's doing more. At this point, it's doing a lot of damage to him, and he's not. There's just no way he's going to get out of it at any point from now to the end of the season. So we need to do a little bit of protection. And kind of take him out of the firing line, and take the focus off of him, because we're pushing a point where we're really doing some sort of permanent damage to the kids. So we do need to take him out. Another one that I would consider dropping or changing is Alejandro Garnacho, but I don't know how many minutes Mason Mount / Kobe Mainoo can play. But if they are able to play a significant amount of minutes, I would drop them, but also I would rather maybe just play Garnacho and then take him out of the starting lineup for the match against Lyon and play one of the other two. Because if we can play Mainoo somewhere, anywhere, or Mount, especially if Mount can take Garnacho's spot directly, but even Mainoo, maybe playing him there as well, because Garnacho's just not doing it. I mean, he is trying. I like the kid. I don't think I would necessarily still sell him, but he is really frustrating, and it's just not coming off for him. And I think he's another one that kind of needs to take a step back, and somebody else has to come in. So, you know, it does have to happen. But let's talk about Cunha a little bit, and we'll get back to Rasmus, Garnacho, and etc. Because there is actually some news about them, and there's some other updates about Onana as well. But the transfer talk for right now is of Matheus Cunha. Some big credible sources coming out today talking more about Cunha and Delap, and this seems to be heating up more and more as we get closer to the January, to the June transfer window, to the summer transfer window. I keep calling it January transfer window, and yeah, I guess this is another one. We're gonna have to take it as it goes. We're gonna see, but it sort of feels a little bit like these two transfers seem similar to I keep forgetting his name, from the player from Crystal Palace last summer, where it was around this time that we were sort of being heavily linked to him. But then once the window opened, we lost him quite soon into the window. So these are another two that are very hot right now. They seem like the top two targets. We have to see how it goes, but I think we are heavily interested in both Cunha and Delap, and I think these are probably the first two targets that we are going to go for ASAP, you know, depending on financials as well. But we have updates around that, and it's going to lighten up. Yes, Elise, thank you, Lyle. Feels similar to Elise in that Elise was kind of talked about quite heavily around this sort of time, but then he ended up going to Bayern quite quick once the window opened. So we got to see how this goes. But this update, Laurie Whitwell saying Manchester United are considering signing Matheus Cunha and Lyon Delap this summer. The signing of both players is considered plausible if United are able to sell well. Again, sell to buy. I do think we have money to get maybe at least one. The other one would probably then have to be up to the fact of, you know, what players are we able to sell, what prices can we get for them, and how quickly we can sort of do those transfer deals. The more following updates on this is that Laurie Whitwell continued by saying Cunha is regarded at Manchester United as a player at his peak who can make an instant impact, adding more experience than the younger profile of recruit they are prioritizing. Which I do, I mean, that is 100% true, and we do need some experience somewhere. So I think, you know, if you're not going to get the experience per se as the striker, like Cunha is, I mean, if you got Cunha, and if Cunha was a striker, if there was a profile of player, you know, like Osimhen or like Gyökeres, who's kind of similar to Cunha in terms of experience and profile, you would then, you know, say at the very least the 10 has to be experienced. We can't go all young. We can't go all sort of very inexperienced. Liam Delap is one that he is inexperienced. He is 22, but he's had one season in the Premier League. So compared to Cunha is a seasoned sort of player in the Premier League. He is experienced and he is very good. And his talents are known, and his, you know, his ups and downs are known, but he is very experienced. He is also a lot older. So, you know, I think Cunha definitely kind of ticks the boxes in terms of the experienced player, but also he fits the system and he is a good player, and he has Premier League experience and on top of just general experience. So, yeah, you know, I think I'm warming up more to him. We do need these players. So, you know, whoever United and Ineos do get, I will back them, and hopefully they do come out. They do come out good. I think Ineos has so far a decently good track record with the transfers. I did make an argument yesterday saying that I did make an argument yesterday kind of saying that I do start to feel more and more that, you know, the windows under Ten Hag and Richard Arnold and John Murtaugh, all their signings, there's a problem with every single one of their signings. It's not really so far the Ineos signings. You know, Xerxes Xerxes had some problems in the beginning, but he's come better and he's come good. And Delit has been good. Maz has been good. Yoro has been good. Um, so the problems that we're seeing in the squad right now is with the previous signings under the previous regime. That was in charge of the transfers. I mean, Casemiro is an issue. Rasmus is an issue. Mount has been an issue because of injuries. Lisandro has been sort of an issue, even though I like Lisandro, but two bad injuries. It's an issue. Anthony was a terrible signing. I don't think that Onana has been terrible. So I don't think there's one player from those signings that you can say has actually been good. So we're suffering from, again, those sort of mistakes from those windows yet again. And I think it's probably set us back 5 years, because to deal with these players, to get them off the books, the money we're going to lose and stuff like that, and the money that it's stopping us from spending going forward. If we never spent the 85 million on Anthony, we would have probably more money now. And you could say that probably for a couple players. So clearly we made some bad signings, some bad recruitment. Ineos has done a good job to start off. Hopefully they continue. Although I do feel like their hands are a little bit tied. And the situation for them is more difficult. So it's going to be one that is vital to navigate and get correct. But Lyle saying Cunha Delap, that would be quite a coup. It would, and again, I still think that we would benefit immensely from a sort of experienced striker like Osimhen or Gyökeres, but we don't know exactly how much money we have, and to get maybe an experienced 10 and an experienced 9 might be too costly for us, and therefore we might not be able to carry out the proper transfer window that Ruben Amorim needs, because we do need beyond just the striker and the 10. We need more positions, and if you get that sort of experienced 9, as well as the experienced 10, the experienced 9 is going to cost us a good amount of money. Now, I'm not against spending money. We should be spending money, but if we can't spend the money, if we can't actually do it, then there's nothing that we can really do about that. We have to manage within our means. Unfortunately, I'm not one that is necessarily one that advocates to be cheap, considering the money the Glazers have taken out of this club and stuff like that. We should be spending money, but the situation is not proper for this. Lyle says if we get Cunha, who is at 25, we can realistically get 5 to 7 years with him. Yeah, and that's why, these transfers, they are ones that, he is still a good fit. I mean, he's not 21, he's not 20, he's not 19, or he's not 22. He's 25, and even if you get somebody that's like that, 25, with a good amount of Premier League experience, you can still get a good 5 to 7 years of him, like Lyle says, and he fits the sort of, he fits the project. I mean, the project is, to build in the immediate, but also for the future, and to then sustain it. So you want it for a long period. You don't want things start falling apart within 3 years, which is why they're going the route they're going down. But there's still an argument to be made. You don't have to sign all 19, 20, 21-year-olds. You can sign a 25, 26-year-old with a good amount of experience, and they can be at the club for the next, 5 to 7 years. If they are the correct player and they do well when they come to Manchester United. So, and Lyle says the Ineos signings have been really good for us. They have. And, I'm starting to focus more on the fact that the players that aren't performing, the players that are struggling, the players that have been sort of bad this season are not their signings. It's not their signings. I mean, Ugarte has had sort of a kind of a difficult time. It's been a little bit up and down for him. But when you talk in terms of transfers, number one, you're never gonna listen. If you hit 100%, you should be giving everybody lottery numbers, because it's basically statistically impossible. But you try to get 75%, even 65% of the transfers that you get in to be successful. That's even still quite high in terms of football. So they haven't been the ones that have been the problem. Plus, they're all basically in their first season, and for the first season, they've done pretty well. It's the ones that have been in their second, third season for Manchester United that came under the Eric Ten Hag sort of era, and even the ones that maybe were here before him, such as like a Marcus Rashford or a Sancho. Those are the players that we have problems with, we have issues with, that are failing, that are letting us down, that are not performing, that are making mistakes, that are, just the more and more time that passes between them joining the club and them being here and them performing, the more that they're getting exposed. And we're going to have to correct and fix these sort of mistakes. So, but we have two more updates on Cunha, which follow as this. That this comes from Ben Jacobs, another credible source, saying Matheus Cunha is open to the move to Manchester United over Nottingham Forest as it stands. I know that's written weird, but that's what they meant, is that he'd rather join Manchester United than Forest, which I guess, maybe we can celebrate, because somehow we're still better than Forest, even though Forest look like they will get Champions League football, but the pull of Manchester United once again. We are there. I mean, he spoke about Manchester United in 2024 summer transfer window. He was asked, he was somewhere on vacation and somebody filmed him. I think it was one of his mates. And, he did praise Manchester United highly. He said it's an honor to be, linked to Manchester United, to a club like Manchester United. And he had some very positive words in that aspect. And then he did say that he was going to do one more year at Wolves. And it seems like he's following through on his word, because that one more year is this year. And it seems like this year is now, up and done, and he is going to be on the move. So, again, sometimes we do just get sort of lucky. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that say, why the hell would Cunha rather join United than some other team? And sometimes maybe we do just get a little bit lucky, because they do like the club for one reason or another. They do understand that, the club isn't in the best sort of place at the moment, but the history and what Manchester United stands for, they're sort of like a little fan for the club, which plays into our favor, because we are still able to get sort of these decently good signings. Thankfully, at the very least, because if it wasn't for that, we'd be screwed. So yeah. Lyle says Ugarte had little to no game time at PSG, and he arrived super unfit. He needed time. That was a PSG problem, not a United one. Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm just pointing it out. I'm just being fair. Like, I think he is the one probably out of all of them that has had maybe the worst time. I still don't think he's bad in terms of, like, we say, like, I won't say he's a horrible signing and we shouldn't have signed him. I don't think we're there yet. I think in terms of first seasons, they've all been decent, if not good. I just think he ranks lower when I compare them to the other players. Because, like, even Xerxes, in the beginning, Xerxes looked like, I was like, why did we sign him? How does this guy fit? I didn't really rate, because his pace, he seemed kind of slow, and he just didn't seem like up to the speed of the Prem. And I was just like, what did they see in this guy when they signed him? But from that time to now, he's certainly improved. He's definitely making impacts, and he's become much better. So, I think Ugarte is one where he's still sort of trying to find his feet. And, he's one that I'm going to look towards for next season. All of them are going to be judged much more heavily next season, but he's one that I'm interested to see how it goes for him next season, because, again, first seasons are always iffy. You can hit gold and you can get somebody like Bruno who just drops right into the team and just performs immediately. It's more rare, but it does happen. But then you have the other players that, there is an adjustment period. So with Ugarte, I want to see how it goes for him next season. Hopefully it goes well, because I do like him. I know what he was brought in and what he has to offer. And I think, he can be part of the squad one way or another, whether he's a starter or he's coming off the bench. I still think that he adds value into the squad one way or another. So, Temizgin says United, he wants Gyökeres, Cunha, Kirkez, Ederson, Araujo, Delap to United. Well, it's very wishful thinking. I don't think we're going to be able to get all those players because I think that's quite amount of money, and I don't think we actually necessarily have it. Gyökeres is one to be seen, although I think Delap has taken the first place. I don't know if we're going to get, two strikers. I think we're going to get the one, unless we do sell Rasmus, and there's some updates about Rasmus, so we're going to get into that, so it makes it interesting. But then there's also the points with Xerxes, because there's been quite some talk. A lot of people think Xerxes is better at the 10. He scored a goal yesterday as the 9. People are now asking for him to play as the 9. So, we got to see how that kind of transpires. What's the planning that Ruben Amorim has? Is he gonna push more for Xerxes to be a 9 or a 10? Because if he deems that Xerxes can kind of play the 9, then we'll end up having Xerxes, Rasmus, and probably Delap, because I think Delap is the top target right now. So I'm going to go with Delap. And, if you sell Rasmus, you'll have Delap and Xerxes. And I don't know if we'll get another striker. I don't know if we're interested in Kirkez anymore, because just his name hasn't been linked. Edison has been one that has been that was brought up today. Araujo, I haven't seen his name in a little bit. And obviously Delap is leading the transfer sort of targets for the striker position. Lyle says the Premier League has produced one team out of the top 6 to finish top 4 in the last 3 seasons: Newcastle, Villa, and now it's Forest turn. So it's not a guarantee they will be good next season. And I think you put that beautifully, Lyle, because that was like what was going through my mind. But I just didn't get it out. Is that just like, with Forest, while they have done spectacular this season, and they've done well, and they're gonna be in Champions League. I think number one, they're gonna find it. They're going to find it extremely difficult next season, playing those Champions League matches and also playing in the league and all the other cups. And there is no sort of kind of guarantee. I mean, this could be a one-off season. I mean, look at Leicester. They won the Premier League. They ended up getting relegated later on. And, there's other teams like Newcastle and Villa. They've done well in recent times, but it's not really of consistency. Now you can say Manchester United has fallen, it's been 13 years, and we're not consistent either. But I don't know, there's just more of a feeling, I guess, around, because we're a big club, that at some point we do have to come back. And maybe, with the way Ineos are moving, this sort of project, you can kind of sell it to players a lot better. So I don't know. It's one to be seen. But this little update kind of goes into Cunha and Rasmus Hojlund, saying Manchester United would have to sell at least one senior player to afford Matheus Cunha. Rashford, along with Sancho and Anthony, are a candidate for a sale. Hojlund and Garnacho could also be sold if an acceptable bid is received. And this is sort of where we start going into the sales and buys of United, because I think there is an update on Rashford as well, a little bit of a surprising update. That's at the end of the show, so make sure you stick around for that. But yeah, I mean, I think most United fans are expecting Rashford, Sancho, and Anthony all to be sold, which should generate quite a good amount of money, regardless of, you're talking about 25 million for Sancho. Rashford should get a price of at least 40 million. That's 65 million. And Anthony is kind of yet to be seen, but I think United want around 40 million for Anthony if we can get him. Now, he is performing very, very well in La Liga, so maybe that is sort of plausible to do and to get. But, if we do that, that's quite a significant sum amount of money. We can obviously then buy, we would be able to get Cunha and Delap just off of the sales of Rashford, Sancho, and Anthony. But there's also potential for the sale of Rasmus Hojlund and Garnacho. I think these are two players that maybe some fans don't want to sell them. Maybe they want to give them one more season. But I think there is definitely grounds for a valid argument for them to be sold based off of performances. Garnacho is one where I think he has a lot of he has a higher ceiling than Rasmus. He has a lot more potential, and there's a lot more room to work with him. It's just I think with Garnacho, it's just one of does he actually fit the system? This has been talked about quite a lot, but the struggles that he's having now, it's because he doesn't actually fit the position he's playing, and it's kind of a puzzling thing because it's like he's not working there well, and there's not a lot of flexibility with him to play him somewhere else. He's different to Ahmad. We know Ahmad is a winger, but Ahmad can play that wingback position because we've seen him play it and he plays it beautifully. So you can kind of play Ahmad in the 10, but you can also play Ahmad as a wingback, and it works out, and you can shift them around, and you can make that sort of thing. I don't think anybody is advocating for Garnacho to play in the wingback position. It's just not him. I don't think he wants to play there. He wouldn't be happy there. And so therefore his only real position is playing that 10, sort of that wide 10. But he's struggling there, and it's not working either. So it comes down to, I guess, a footballing decision you would make, and you would say, well, we can sell Garnacho, you get a good fee for him. He is pure profit because he's deemed as an academy player. And you can get a player like Cunha, who obviously fits the system and the role much better. He's more experienced. He's more of a finished article. We should get better performances almost immediately out of him compared to working with Garnacho. So there's that argument. And then Rasmus has just been very, very bad. His first season was sort of, it wasn't exceptional, but there was something there that you said that you were hoping for, that this season that he would grow and improve, and he's clearly regressed and gone the opposite way, which is of concern because it's a real gamble for next season for him to be here, to go with him, because if he has anything similar to the performance next season that he's had this season, it's going to be a real struggle to kind of demand a decently good transfer fee of him. So do you sell Rasmus as well? And maybe you get two strikers, or at least you get Delap and you go with Xerxes. I don't know. It is a little bit of a conundrum in my opinion. Lyle says getting euros solely on the project was brilliant from Ineos. It was. Again, listen, they're not perfect people. You don't have to be happy with everything they've done or are doing or are going to do. They can get the criticism when they get the criticism, but again, I always try to keep a fair hand for everybody and everything around Manchester United. And I think, again, on the transfers so far and sort of the identification of players, I think that they've done a good job, and I think that they are doing a good job. Even the likes of Dorgu, I really like Dorgu. I think the acquisition of Dorgu is going to be one that we're going to be really proud of as time continues. He's only been here a short period of time, but for a player that is 20 years old, that was playing in the Serie A for half of the season, has come in January. I like the profile of what he has to offer for this system for Ruben Amorim, and I think actually his attributes fit well with the Premier League as well, because he's fast, he's quick, he has a good cross on him. And he has that sort of drive to get forward, dribble with the ball, get up there, get involved in the attacking sort of play. So I like that aspect. And then you can sort of say that for all the other. I mean, Euro has been good since, he had a couple struggles in a couple matches, but that's, to be merited. That's to be warranted. That's going to happen. He's a young guy. He's came from another league as well. But he's really stepped it up in the past, few matches at the very least. And I think people are starting to see, why Real Madrid were targeting him as well. And, for a player of that age, I think his price tag, some people have they didn't like necessarily the price tag. But I think at that age, with the potential, if he does, grow and continue to perform, that price tag will be paid back. So I don't think the price tag is necessarily an issue. And then with even the other players, I think Delit's been very good this season. Amaz has been very good this season, and Xerxes has become better. He started off a bit rough, but he's become better, and I'm taking a little bit more of a liking to him. He's been a little bit more important. And Ugarte is one that's had sort of an average season. He's had his circumstances, but again, I don't think it's been. I don't think the transfer of Ugarte is one where you can say it was a mistake, like an Anthony or an Onana or something like that. So, the great Axe Lord has joined us as well, saying he is in the house. I think the house is going to collapse now, but last night you went ballistic in Grace's Discord. Yeah, I kind of missed that, but considering I have no Discord, cough cough, wink wink. Yes, I know. Axe says we shouldn't sell Rasmussen, by the way. He's been here for just a little while. We need to grow him. Plus, we don't know how Cunha will adapt. Well, fair points. But what do you make of it? What do you make of the fact of, like, so I think right now the top transfer target for the striker position is Delap. It seems that way, whether you agree with that or not. It seems like that based off of the news that we keep receiving. That's the shift that's happened. Delap seems like he's number one target. If we get Delap, and we get Cunha, do we sell Rasmus then? Because I think I would still give Rasmus another season, but I think there's arguments to be made in terms of the overall project. If they tell you we have to sell, or we're going to sell Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, right? Which, is obviously most likely going to happen. And then they tell you that, listen, we can get Delap and Cunha, plus we can get all the other transfer targets that we need in all the other positions. But we to do that, because Cunha is going to be quite expensive in terms of price, because he's going to be, I think, around 60 million. We also do have to sell Rasmus. How young is Delap? He's 22. He's 22, so he's on the younger side. But Cunha is the experienced guy that's going to go into the 10. So, there's things to be done here. It's certainly a question. I don't think there's any straightforward answer. There's a lot of things you can do. You can sell Garnacho and Rasmus. You can get in Cunha and Delap. You can then go for other targets in other positions. You can probably also, maybe, if you do all those sales, if you do Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, Rasmus, and Garnacho, you can maybe get Delap, and maybe you can get Gyökeres. I don't know if that's what they plan to do. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense, considering the other positions we need to strengthen in as well, and how much money we have. But it's just something that maybe we can do in a bigger term. So, maybe you get rid of Rasmus. Rasmus is around the same age as Delap. You replace Rasmus with Delap. And then maybe you get Cunha, and maybe you do end up getting a Gyökeres or an Osimhen as well. And now you have, two strikers, one with experience, one that's younger, but one that has at least that seems, he's better than Rasmus. Let's be honest. Delap is better than Rasmus. He's performed better than Rasmus. Rasmus has had 2 seasons in the Prem, and Delap has had 1 season. His 1 season is better than the 2 seasons probably combined. So there is arguments to be made there for that. So, but I don't necessarily disagree with the Axe that, we could grow him. And we don't actually know how Cunha will adapt, although I do feel sort of strong that Cunha shouldn't have necessarily a problem adapting, because he's a Premier League player with that sort of experience. He's 25, and I think he's a fairly good player already. He's sort of pretty molded anyway, so I don't have too much concerns about Cunha, but there is always the possibility that he could struggle in his first season. I mean, those things do happen. What has Delap that Rasmus hasn't? I just think it's just performances. I think it's just he's a little bit more ahead in ability. I think he has more confidence than Rasmus, and he's scoring goals. He's scoring goals in the Prem in an Ipswich Town team that's going to get relegated. So I think he's further along than Rasmus. They're around the same age, and I think his ability is probably, as of right now, just better than Rasmus. Now, in terms of potential of the future, I think they're both kind of a little bit pretty much in the air. But I think right now the sentiment across people's minds in the fan base is that Delap, compared to Rasmus, Delap is a better striker, and he's further along in terms of progression, and they just like Delap better. So, Delap is inconsistent as hell. Well, maybe so, but I mean, he is playing for an inconsistent team as well. I don't think he's that inconsistent because he does have a decently good goal scoring record. Um, for an inconsistent team. I mean, Delap, I believe, has like about 14 goals assists this season with Ipswich Town. He has 30 matches. He has 12 goals, 2 assists in the Premier League this season with Ipswich. And so, yeah. Plus, I'm gonna be quite honest, and maybe you won't like this, but he is gonna cost 40 million. It is one that sort of, I guess, fits into the budget of Manchester United at the time, and it seems like Osimhen and Gyökeres might be ones of that. They are a little bit priced out, considering the fact that I think the fact that Cunha is being brought to the forefront. Cunha is the experienced player. They're going for experience in the 10. And I don't know if we're able to get experience in the striker and experience in the 10. And maybe they're saying that the bigger problem isn't really the experience in the striker, like many of us are saying, but it's actually the experience in the 10. Although there is Bruno and there is Mount. The problem with Mount is we don't know if he can stay fit or if he's going to stay fit. And right now, there's sort of that inexperience kind of with Garnacho. He doesn't fit that 10 position. We don't know if we're going to be able to get him to fit that 10 position. There's not really another role for Garnacho to play. He's not like Ahmad. He can't play wingback. He won't play wingback. It won't work. As of right now, the way I see it, the way I see him play his game, it just won't work. So Ahmad, you can play him wing back, but Garnacho, it just seems like it's 10 or nothing. And he is young, and I think with the fact that Mount may be going in and out of injuries, we do need another 10, and we need somebody that's experienced, and we need somebody that's good. And I think the 10s are very important for the strikers, because I think the strikers, regardless of experience or inexperience, if you don't have good 10s, the strikers, regardless of experience or inexperience, they're going to struggle. So, I don't know how we necessarily are going to go about this, but it is one that is, becoming quite interesting as we move forward. Axe says Cunha is personally a red flag. We shall see how he can perform when he's not in the spotlight. Plus the pressure. Well, I mean, I think you can make that argument for kind of anybody and everybody that's going to come to United. So, but yeah, I get that. Every time Rasmus goes to Denmark, he scores 40 million for him. Or will they buy my old shoes for well, that's his release clause. So he has a release clause, 40 million. If they get relegated, he has a 40 million release clause. They are probably going to get relegated. And therefore that's the release clause, and anybody that wants him has to pay 40 million. I mean, it is what it is. I don't think it's necessarily a bad fee. For the guy either. I mean, 40 million is not really a lot. And it kind of fits within the sort of thing that we've been doing. Don't overpay, don't go above 60 million. I think those are fine transfers. If we're not paying anywhere above 60 million for any sort of player, I think regardless of what you pay for them, you can, it's sort of proper business. You can recoup, or you can stand to make profit as well. So, Axis, Garnacho, Alvarez, Greenwood will dominate La Liga soon enough. Well, maybe so, but that's La Liga, not the Premier League. It's one thing to say they'll dominate the Premier League. It's another thing to say they'll dominate La Liga. We can't afford to be stupid this next transfer season. We absolutely cannot. We cannot. Which is why I still have hopes for Ineos, because I don't think that they've been stupid in their first two windows, even though I did say that we needed more transfers in January. Apparently we were unable to do so, but at the very least they got him Dorgu, and Dorgu has been good, and is kind of fit that slot and allowed a little bit more adaptability, rotation in the team, because we can play Maz as a center back now, which thankfully, because we're a little bit light there as well, considering the fact that Delap has missed the past two games. Delit's a little bit one that is of a bit concern. I like Delap. I think he's good, but he seems to pick up these sort of little injuries here and there. And there's always this sort of injury concern with him as well. So he's another one that we got to watch. And Lisandro, we don't know what's going to happen with Lisandro. He's had two bad injuries, two season ending injuries in 2 seasons in a row. So, we don't know what's going to happen with him. So thankfully we got Dorgu, because we could play Maz right center back, and allow Delap to play right wing back. But, we need Ahmad back so we could switch him around. We could do a little bit of rotation, because at the moment Delap and Dorgu are playing all of the minutes, and we don't have much interchangeability in those positions. So, but yeah, we can't be stupid. We need to get our transfer targets in. But I do trust them at the current moment, because I think they did a good job so far. But we have a couple more updates that we got to get through, so let's get through them. This one with Delap again, and Cunha, saying that Liam Delap is high in thoughts at Manchester United to come in as a striker, while Matheus Cunha is seen as potentially a good fit for one of the number 10 positions. Signing both players is viewed as plausible if United are able to sell well, while other attacking options are being explored for both forward roles, and plenty of talks on targets are anticipated. This then jumps into Rasmus, saying that apparently Rasmus Hojlund is open to joining Juventus. That's coming from Tuttosport, which is an Italian outlet. So, I don't know. I don't take the Italian media too far. They talk a lot more shit than most outlets and countries, I guess. It's a lot of speculation. I think this is, one of a few so far. Maybe it's the start of what will be the sale of Rasmus. Maybe not. Maybe it's just bullshit paper talk. We got to see how it's going to do. But we take it a day at a time, step at a time over here. But the other update here came as Fabrizio, because we're bringing Fabrizio, and Fabrizio had this to say, and he said on the possibility of Rasmus Hojlund and Andre Onana leaving Manchester United this summer, he said that I'd keep both situations open. Pretty much just stating that, there is the possibility that both of them can be sold. And it's not that far-fetched, I guess, as maybe some people feel like it may be, or that it's not going to happen. I feel like those words, he's pretty much saying it's a 50-50 situation, whether they are sold or not sold. And yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be a crazy window, because if we do start selling all these players, well, it's gonna take some time to sell them all and do the deals, but we could do a really big window, one that we haven't seen at United, where there are a lot of sales of some significant players, even of players that maybe some people don't necessarily want to be sold. But it can happen. So I Axe says it's going to take ages to sell our players, then the fee for Cunha will skyrocket. No, Cunha's fee can't skyrocket because he has a buyout clause as well. So his fee is set at his fee. The only thing that can happen in that aspect, Axe, is that if we take too long and we drag our feet, players don't like uncertainty, and players don't like to wait too long. Now, some players, they hold out because if they feel very strongly about where they want to go, they will hold out. But sometimes players, they just want to get their future settled and they want to get to work. Sort of like Elise. I think the problem with Elise was we didn't have the funds ready to go. And I guess in the talks, we kind of were like, you have to wait a little bit for us. And he had an offer on the table from Bayern Munich right there, ready to go. And he chose to go to Bayern Munich because, one, they're a good club. He was offered a good playing time. He's played very well there. And he didn't want to sit around and wait. So we ended up losing him. So that's the only thing that I think that there's the concern. His fee won't skyrocket because his fee's set in stone. It's I believe it's a 60 million buyout clause from what I remember. The only thing is if some other clubs get involved, maybe like an Arsenal or something like that, or whatever, and they have the funds readily available and ready to go, then he might just choose to go because we're not ready. Now, another thing that is also a problem is that United I don't know if United are in the position to necessarily pay both these buyout clauses with the money, because that means we're paying the money up front and not in installments like you do when you just buy a player regularly for a transfer fee agreed and it's spread out over the 5-year contract. So, how are we going to go about that? Are we actually going to have to wait for the sales so that we get the money so that we can just pay the buyout clause and pay the money up front? Or are we going to have to do a deal where we pay maybe a little bit extra over the buyout clause so that we can pay in installments, so that Wolves agreed to the deal, and then we can get that transfer done? I think those are the things that are surrounding this sort of thing here. This situation here. I really think we should encourage Rasmus more, but 90% of our players were transferred in for Erik ten Hag, and they hired a completely incompatible new coach. So sell the whole team, buying a whole new one. New team makes sense now. You people called me a joker. Worst way to balance the books. Sell all, buy new. Idiotic management. I don't think that they're selling all and I mean, we have to do that anyway, though, regardless. I think they were always going to do that anyway, because they have a different plan, a new idea, and they are not Richard Arnold, John Murtaugh. They have their own plan. So I think it was going to happen over the next course of time anyway, because wherever United were under Erik ten Hag, we still weren't where we needed to be, and they've gone in a different direction. So you have to rebuild the squad regardless. Arsenal did it over amounts of periods of time under Arteta. They spent around 700 million. They didn't keep that squad. Nobody keeps the squad. When you set out the project and you set out to build, you have to tear it down little by little and replace little by little. We're not going to do it all in one window or sort of window. They already had one window. But this window is different because I think they've been here for a year, and I think they've deemed which players are at this club that are a problem. There's numerous amounts of players that they aren't going to be sold, but there's numerous amounts of players that are a problem. They were bad buys. They were bad recruitment. You have to fix that bad recruitment. You have to fix the bad recruitment, and we do have to go down the Omar Barada sort of route, in that you get two seasons maybe at most. You have to show some type of performance, or you got to go out the door, because then it makes it extremely harder to get rid of the player, or get a decent fee for the player, which has kind of been our problem. I mean, United have gone down the route of buying and overpaying for players and buying the wrong players and not looking to sell them after a certain amount of period of time. And we get stuck with them and they never really come good. And then we're stuck with these sorts of players. So and plus the high wages don't help either. But we get stuck with these players, and it makes it harder to rebuild. It makes it harder to change the team. So we need to do this. I think the list of players that are being deemed for transfers are ones that you can make arguments they're valid. It's not, again, like I said, I know there's been paper talk about the sale of Kobe Mainu. I don't think Kobe Mainu is one that is going to go anywhere. I don't think Kobe is going to be sold. I think when you compare Kobe to Garnacho, I think there's arguments to be made about Garnacho. I don't think there's any arguments to be made about Kobe. So selling the likes of Kobe would make no sense. Selling the likes of Garnacho, while people might not like it, there are arguments as to why you would do such a thing. And you can make the same for Rasmus, and you can make the same for Onana, especially Onana. But you could say that about Onana. You can say that about the likes of Casemiro, because he's old. Eriksen's got to go. Lindelof has got to go. There's an argument for Maguire in there somewhere as well. And then obviously there's Rashford, Anthony, and Sancho. All those players are ones that aren't performing, haven't performed, or are just past the time. They've been given amount of time and they got to go. So, I don't see a problem with it. It's not necessarily a bad way to balance the books either. Now, some transfers, yes, because it'll hit us on PSR, but I've always made the argument you got to cut your losses, because to cut your losses and get in the appropriate players that fit the system and fit the team and actually perform should lead to better performances on the pitch, which means a better season, which means more money in the end. So if we can finish higher in the Premier League, we'll get more money. If we can get into Champions League, we'll get more money. If we go far in Champions League, we'll get more money. If we can win a cup here or there, we get more money as well. So we do have to do these sorts of things. Well, that's the problem with Rasmus. Axe, have they even paid the whole sum for Rasmus, considering it was split for many reasons, many seasons, if I remember correctly? Yeah, but that's one of the problems with Rasmus, which is why he might not be sold. Even if people want him to be sold, he might not be sold. Now, it depends. For example, if Juventus are actually very interested in him, it depends what fee is being offered and what kind of offset that is to the books. Because we did pay that significant transfer fee. We paid, or we're paying 2 seasons. We're going to pay, I think, a 3rd season. So we already paid a certain amount. So depending on how much money we can get back for him, if we were to sell him, and based on the amount of money we paid and how much we still owe, that depends on if that sale can be done or not. Because if we can get close to sort of breaking even, maybe we lose a little bit of money, like 5-10 million or something like that, I think they'll do it. If they can't get a fee and we lose more than that, and it's quite significant, and it makes a significant problem for PSR, then I don't think they're going to do it, because they can't do it. But I think they want to do it, which would then lead to him staying here, having another season. He gets another chance. But if that chance doesn't go well, then that's surely the book closed on him after next season, for sure. So, first season under their plan equals worst season in EPL for us. I mean, yeah, but when you make changes, it's always going to be instability. And again, they're not going to get everything right. They held their hands up. Well, at least Sir Jim held his hands up and said that, it was a mistake to continue with Erik ten Hag. They couldn't make the correct decision, because I think what Sir Jim said, And I don't buy everything Sir Jim said, but I think he had some truths in there. And I think one of the things that he was honest about was that they couldn't determine whether it was Eric Ten Hag or it was the environment. And the team that they had put together wasn't around long enough to really make that determination. And again, I think they gave him the benefit of the doubt. That was what I argued for in that summer, to give Eric Ten Hag the benefit of the doubt. They did that. That was the decision that they made. It backfired. It wasn't right. It was the wrong decision. They said it was the wrong decision. But I, again, for a certain part, I respect the fact that they said that they messed up and that they went to go rectify it. But you have circumstances. It's a give and take. I think they again took a hit in the immediate point because you made big changes in the middle of the season. And when you make those changes, the changes that they made, it's not going to go smoothly. But again, they're planning for a longer period of time and a future, and it's not so much immediate. Although you do need to succeed in some form in the immediate, but there is still an argument to be made. Yes, Amorim came in. Yes, the argument was maybe they should have just waited for the summer. Again, I still think that there's a point that you can argue that Ruben has come in. He is further along in his ideas, plans, and understanding based on understanding the Premier League and the teams, understanding his team and his players. While this season has gone to shit and hasn't been good, the hope is that for next season it will go much smoother and it will go much better, and then you can build on top of that. So let's see if it pays off. I hope it does. I feel like it can. But we got to couple it with what we're going to do in this window. And then that's the job that they have to do. So that's the job at hand at fourth. I think Ruben has done okay in considering all the circumstances surrounding the club and the sort of mess that it's kind of been in. And I think, we just got to see how it goes in the summer transfer window, and see what they give Ruben Amorim, and see if that decision was actually right or not. Because if this summer window becomes a failure, then what they've done was an absolute disaster, and they got it completely 120% wrong. Juve have Colomwani. They do, but Juve has some money problems, and they're looking to kind of transform their squad, and sell some players and kind of rebuild as well. So they are looking at targets for the striker position as well as some other positions. So it's not that far out the window just because they have Colomwani. Yeah. Axe says he's tired of this hope. Results will be revolt. I mean, nobody's revolting, Axe. I don't know why you keep saying about revolt. No, nobody's revolting. It's not happening. And even if we do revolt, nothing's gonna happen. And there's numerous reasons for that, and you should know why. Because the United fan base will not come together and do a proper revolt, so it's not gonna happen. And also, it's not the time to talk about that because we have a manager here who's in his first season, and I think most people are willing to kind of see where this goes before we start doing anything that we really got to do. I think if this whole project collapses and utterly fails, then yeah, maybe, but that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen next season, and it'll probably happen in the third season / installment of Ineos. But it'll still be unsuccessful because the United fan base won't do what the United fan base has to do for multiple reasons. There's just too many people with too many different opinions and too many thought processes. It just won't happen. For that to happen, Axe, the stadium has to be emptied. People have to stop buying tickets to go to the matches, which is almost physically impossible. It's never going to happen because people don't agree. You have the season ticket holders. Half of them won't do it. You have the people lined up to take the season ticket holders won't they'll just buy them. You have people from all over the world that will still go to watch the matches. And then you don't have enough people that refuse to stop buying the merch, stop giving money. So, unless that was to happen, that's the only way that's going to happen. So, um, I mean, I know what you're saying, Axe. No results next season equals Axe for Amorim, Axe for Ineos, and Axe for Glazers. I mean, but that's quite obvious. I don't feel the need to talk about that because that's just quite obvious. I mean, Ruben Amorim can't have a season, and it's not even just Ruben Amorim. Let's just say Manchester United in general, because it's not just Amorim. It's a project with a group of people, and there's more than just Amorim. It's the club cannot have a season like they had this season. So results are obviously they have to be there. So that's kind of quite the obvious statement. Otherwise, it's just going to be bad all around, and so like it won't be sustainable. So we obviously have to get results. But again, I'm not overhyping I'm not overhyping the I'm not overhyping like next season. Like I don't expect the fact that we've had two back-to-back seasons that have been bad, and one has been our worst season, and there's been all this. I'm not expecting us to be like, I will take top 6. If we get top 4, that's great. But I'm not gonna go crazy if we finish in 5th place and say Ruben Amorim out. I'll actually back the manager because I think we need to go and progress on that, because where we are now is where we are now. So we'll take it as that. Even if we don't feel like we should be there, we are below mid-table. We've been below/mid-table all season. We finished 8th last season. So we are, in terms of 2 seasons, we are a mid-table team. So we need to improve from that point. Now, I think we can do that. But I'm not going to say Ruben Amorim has to be sacked if he doesn't get 3rd place or 4th place. I'm not going to go there. But we have to finish. I would say goal for Ruben Amorim, top 6. You got to make top 6. I want Champions League, but you got to make top 6 at the very least. You got to improve in points, and you got to improve in results. And I think he can do that. But but also we got to get the transfer window dealt with him. And again, the transfer window ain't going to be on him. It's going to be on Ineos. So we got to see where that goes. No excuse. The gap gets too big. We will never catch up like this. It's not excuses, but I mean, again, then there will be a war within the fan base, because my thing is, if we have a shit transfer window, I mean, people are going to blame Ruben Amorim and they're going to ask for him to be sacked, and you could say whatever, but again, then I will be looking at the upper management like I did, and like I've always done, because it is their job. They did this. There are certain things, on the pitch, I'm seeing the way the team is playing. I do see improvements from when Ruben Amorim has taken over to now. I think he's fairly limited because of the options he has in the positions that he has, but there has been improvements in terms of the general team play. So I think he's doing his job so far in terms of that aspect. But if Ineos can't get him transfer targets that fit his team and fit the project, then they've set him out to fail. Just like every other people in charge of Manchester United prior, and every other manager prior. So, I probably will shift to banging on about Ineos and how they failed the manager, and I won't really talk too much about the manager, because again, I think if you don't provide the manager an environment to succeed, it doesn't matter what manager we're going to get. So, but it depends. If we get targets, if we get proper targets, and we look at the team and we say, well, they've done a good job, Ineos, and they've gotten good players, and, we should have a good season, and that season fails on the pitch, then it obviously goes more on Ruben Amorim. But I can't say one way or another right now, because we don't know what's going to happen yet. We we haven't gotten there. So, um, Lyle says agree. Top 6 would be decent next year. If we get top 4, that would be a huge achievement. It would, because we are where we are right now. And again, last season we finished 8th. This season we're gonna finish anywhere from 13th to 10th or some shit like that. So, you know, improvement would be top 6. I think top 6. I mean, that's where the standard has fallen. Before it was top 4, but we're kind of far from that. So, and you have to take steps to improve. And I think to demand top 4, to say top 4 or failure is a little bit rough on the manager, considering the current situation of the club. So I would say top 6 is where it is. That would be encouraging signs, which would lead us into the next season, and the next season then has to definitely be top 4. And probably add some trophies if you can along the way, whether it's the FA Cup or the Carabao. That would make it much plausible. Yes, against the Glazers. I mean, we're still protesting the Glazers, but it's very, it's very difficult to do so when we've had opportunities to do so, but we just never come together. We don't do what is needed. And everybody has their reasons for it. I'm not trying to alienate anybody in the fan base, but it is, it is sort of impossible the way we go. So, we've had 2 decent windows so far. I think we'll have another good summer. We just need to act a little quicker, especially in exits. Yeah, I think for me the biggest ones is the exits, because I think the ins have been good. I think the ins are difficult to move quick because of the situation the club is in, and I think in which the speed they move, when you think about the restrictions that United have, are actually of decency. It's it's not super quick. Obviously, we always want more, but a big problem is, again, we have to be real. We know we are struggling with finances, and we know that probably at least half of the transfers, if not more than half of the transfers, we have to sell to buy. To sell to buy, we have to do the sales. The sales are going to take some time. So everything is going to take time. But I think I'm more focused on, they can't drag their feet all summer, but it is going to take some time. It's not going to be as fast as everybody wants it to be. It's impossible because we're not in the situation to move quickly. Like other clubs. Other clubs don't need to rely on their sales to buy, so they can move much quicker than us. That is the disadvantage that we are at. That is the disadvantage Ineos face. Because it's not possible. If we don't have the money there, we have to do the sales. Well, to do the sales, it's probably going to take weeks. And depends on what kind of players. Now, there's some sales that we could do maybe quite quickly. Depends on Marcus Rashford. And depends what happens with Sancho. Those are 2 deals that could be done sort of quickly. Anthony might be one that could be done sort of quickly as well. And then, they're not really sales, but Eriksson and Lindelof, they're out of contract and they're gone, so they're going to be off the books. Johnny Evans will be off the books, even though he doesn't have that big of a wage. The bigger issue will be player, and maybe Garnacho, you could do a deal quick because he's young, and if you sell him, it's a deal that could be done sort of quick because there's interest in him. A big problem is Casemiro. Because I think Casemiro is going to be one that's going to drag out all summer, and he has the biggest wage. And it might not even be able to get done because we might not be able to get it might not just be something that's possible. He also doesn't have to agree to it. So he might just stick it out. So to me, Casemiro is probably the biggest problem. We have fortunate favor with Anthony because he's playing very good in La Liga. Which might help us get a transfer done more quickly than we expected in the beginning. So, Access 2028, we ought to win EPL at least. Well, that is what they that is what they sorted that out for. That is what they've projected, right, Axe? That's what they've been talking about. That is their goal ultimately. And that's what they've stated, Ineos, is that they want to win the Prem in 2028. Now, I'm going to be fair to use their own words, specifically Sir Jim, since he gave all the interviews. He did say that that might be a bit premature in terms of maybe a year before. But I think, to be fair, if we don't win in 2028, we should be there. We should be like right there. The 2028 season, we should look at the 2028 season when we get there and say, if we don't win it, we should say, okay, we were very, very close to winning it. We need maybe one more piece to the puzzle and we go for next season. And I think we'll all probably accept that. If we get to 2028 and we finish in fourth and we're 15 points off of first place or something like that, that's obviously not going to be acceptable because we're not close. But if we finish, let's say, in second and we miss out on the Prem by 5 to 7 points, I think most people will be like, okay, they said 2028. We didn't do it in 2028, but we are like right there. And so like one more season, we should be able to actually achieve that. But again, these are all circumstances that have to do at the time. So, you know what I mean? Rajat is in here advocating to keep Onana. Tell us why, please. Rajat says coach out. So you want Amorim out, but you want to keep Onana. Can you explain why? What are the reasons you want to keep Onana? Because I'm just going to tell you, it does have nothing to do with the manager. Onana hasn't been good since Ten Hag bring him in here. But Lyle says, especially since Casemiro doesn't want to leave, and that is a big problem. And Axe says they said it. And they did say it, and that's what I'm saying. So they're saying these things. They're being, more forward with us than they have been with the Glazers. They're at least identifying an achievable goal and project that we are working towards. And they have kind of put these statements out there, and that's why I kind of want to see it through. I want to see it. I want to see where we actually get to. Because this is what they're telling us. I want to see where we actually get to. But to see where we actually want to get to, we have to actually walk this path and go through this process, and we have to abide some more time because we're in 2025. There's another 3 years to add on to this. So in the next season and 2, we should be making higher progress. We can't say, it's been a mess this season, but we can't just write it all off. We have to go into next season and see what it gives us. Next season will be a much higher indication. If next season's anything like this season, I think, all their backing will probably fall out from under them. And then the third season probably won't be very good either. And then that's the project gone, and that's Ineos pretty much done and over with. So let's take it as it goes. Let's start with, let's see if we can win the Europa League. Then let's see what we can do in the summer transfer window. Then let's see how next season goes, and we go from there. We go from there. So but I agree with you, Axe. I think if you get two seasons more down the line, so next season and the season after, and it's not the improvement that is there, I think that Ineos will be pushed out by the fan base. I don't think you necessarily have to worry about that. I just think it's a moment. I just think we're in a period of we're just trying to see where this takes us. And people have concerns, and rightfully so. Everybody's allowed to have concerns. You could have your concerns. I have my concerns. I don't agree with everything they're saying or doing. I don't agree with the fact that they're actually going to go for Delap. I think that we need a ready-made, experienced striker. They seem to go with Delap, who's far more inexperienced than an Osimhen or a Gyökeres. I don't know, but they're going to go down that route. Again, I'll give him a benefit of the doubt, like I do with most people and most things. I'll give him a benefit of the doubt, and we'll see how it goes. And if it goes wrong, then you know, I'll sit here and say that they fucked up and, you know, they got to pay for the mistakes. But I don't know. Lyle says we should be in the title race at least. We should, because that's what they're aiming for, right? And Sir Jim did say that. He said 2028 might be a season too soon. It might be one season too soon, but you know, if we don't win it, we should be right around there. We should kind of be where Arsenal are in that aspect. So, Rajat says United won't win. Coach not good enough. And nothing changed. Well, I disagree, and I think that one, it's far too early to say nothing has changed because the guy came in November. And two, since he came in and implemented his style of play, we have gotten better in his style of play. I don't think we've made like major progress where you say oh, it's totally different than it was before. But I think from when he started to now, I think the team is playing much better as a team. There has to be more improvement, and we have to get better. We're not anywhere near being, you know, the finished article, but there has been improvement. So I disagree with that, and I do believe that there will be more improvement going forward next season. I don't think we're going to see. I think right now, based off of my belief in Ruben Amorim, I don't think we'll see the season. I don't think we'll see a season like this season, and I don't think we'll see a season like last season under Ruben Amorim. I think it will actually be a quite good season. I think he'll be able to manage to get top six. But that's just speaking from right now in what I believe in Ruben Amorim and his management skills. But we got to see how the transfer window goes as well, because that's going to be very important for the manager and the team. Yeah, Lyle. You know, some people, I think, Lyle, they just don't understand the fact that this guy has a very different system and a very different idea. I think, you know, I made a similar mistake, and I've been holding my hands up about it. But I do know that the majority of the fan base, when they were saying that Ten Hag needs to be sacked and replaced, I think their idea was the manager that comes in is going to get a bounce and it's going to change things. And I don't think people are willing to say that it wasn't necessarily just all the manager, because many of the people that wanted Ten Hag out were Ten Hag haters. They hated Ten Hag. They wanted him out after the second season, or during the second season. They turned on him, and everything was always Ten Hag's fault. When we said that it's mixed, it's between Ten Hag and it's between the rest. And I think these people, they expected that you get rid of Ten Hag and everything will be fixed. And we never said that. At least I didn't say that. And I think most of the people in here didn't say that. I think we came to the conclusion that Ten Hag did have to get sacked at the end at that time. But, you know, we never blamed him 100%, because there are many other problems at Manchester United. And it wasn't just Ten Hag. But Ineos went in the route that they want to go down. And they're making the changes that they're making. So when you make changes, there's always going to be a period of instability. The point is that after a certain period of time, that instability has to go away. So it's far too early. You don't have to necessarily like Ruben Amorim. I'm not saying, you know, you got to be a Ruben Amorim fanboy. I'm just saying that right now, at this point in time, it's far too early to be screaming and shouting and say that Amorim has to be sacked. It doesn't make sense. In any sort of way. We're starting a new project with this manager. The management team is 1 year in. They're going to be 2 years in soon, so they should have their feet better. And Amorim, solely with the manager, he's got next season, and if it goes well, he'll get the season after that, and we'll see where we are. So, what will he win? He won't win anything. Well, but see, you make statements like that, and I can make the same statement like that, but I don't make statements like that. You say he won't win anything. I could sit here and tell you he'll win everything. But we're just making shit up at that point. You know what I mean? We're just making things up. Like, you say he won't win anything, and I could sit here and I could tell you for an hour straight that Ruben Amorim will win everything. I'm making shit up and you're making shit up. You have no clue if he's gonna win anything. You don't know that. Nobody can make a statement like that. I mean, you can if you want to. It's your statement, but I'm just saying it's not backed by anything with any logic to it. It's just an emotional statement because you don't like the circumstances of Manchester United. You don't like the circumstances of the team. You hate the fact that we're 13th, and you don't like the results that we've gotten under Ruben Amorim because it hasn't been necessarily great. But when you look beyond the manager and you look at the problems at the club and you look at the issues within the squad and the players, it's always much more than just the manager. There's the manager, and then there's other aspects. Same thing with Erik ten Hag, like we said. So you can say he won't win anything, and I'll say the opposite, and I'll say he'll win everything. One of us will be right, one of us will be wrong. We'll both be wrong because maybe he wins a little bit, and maybe he doesn't win everything, and maybe he wins something, and maybe he doesn't, and he doesn't win nothing. You know, I just try to base everything off of the situation that we have in facts. I try not to get too emotional about things because emotional statements are not ones based off of logic. And I prefer logic over emotions. Erik ten Hag didn't leave Man United in 13th. He did. He did. When he got sacked, we were literally in like 12th. So I don't know what you're talking about there. When Erik ten Hag got sacked, we were in 12th place. So we've gone maybe a little bit nowhere in terms of points and results. But I mean, when you have certain things going on the pitch, like I will say, remember the period where we conceded all the corners and we kept conceding from corners and that was an issue. Well, that's been sorted out. That was done by Amorim and the coaching staff. We're no longer conceding from corners, right? Like how we were. That period was destructive for us because we lost results solely on those stupid goals. Now, we're still conceding stupid goals one way or another, and you have to get to the bottom of that, but maybe that's a personnel issue because, like yesterday, we should have won that match. Our goalkeeper made two horrible mistakes that a 10-year-old, you expect from a 10-year-old, not a professional footballer. You know, what is Amorim supposed to do about that? You know, today and yesterday after the match should be talking about how we won a match away from home, Europa League. Ruben should have been credited for that. Xerxes should have gotten the praise that he deserved for scoring that winner, and Euro should have gotten praise. And none of that happened because Onana took over the headlines because he made two shit mistakes, and we left France with a draw. I mean, there's certain things that happens that's out of the manager's hands because that shit shouldn't be happening. And you can say he's got to make him better. But again, I always make this argument. There's a reason why Pep Guardiola and all these other managers like Arteta, there's a reason why they go through their squad and they remove all these players and they get new players in. Because sometimes you just can't make a player good. You just can't make a player what you need him to be in your system and your football. And Onana has been one, whether it's Amorim in charge or Ten Hag in charge, he has made monumental mistakes that has led us to losing multiple matches, points, and being kicked out of competitions. So and this is why I like the fact that we had Ten Hag and we had Amorim split into one season, because it just proves the point that it can't just be the manager at times, because sometimes it really is the players. And when you have two managers in the same season and you have the same player making the same mistakes, then I like to say that it's not the managers because it's 2v1. So, for me, when it comes to players like Onana, there is no helping this fucking guy. He was the wrong buy under the wrong recruitment team. They got him, and it was the wrong buy. It was the wrong transition. He wasn't the goalkeeper that we needed, right? And I'll say it again. I didn't want De Gea to go. I like De Gea. I did accept the argument that we needed to transition from a traditional goalkeeper to one that is a sweeper keeper. But we didn't get the right one. You see, Arteta at Arsenal, he got the right goalkeeper. they had Ramsdale, and Ramsdale was a very good shot stopper, and Ramsdale was very liked within the Arsenal fan base. They didn't want Raya. When Arteta went and he got Raya, they didn't want Raya. Raya didn't do good in the initial period in the beginning anyway. Arteta stuck with it because he knew, and they knew that they identified the correct player. And now all the Arsenal fans love Raya. They don't give a shit about Ramsdale. They don't even talk about Ramsdale anymore. Because Raya can save. He makes exceptional saves, but he's also a good sweeper keeper. He fits that bill perfectly. Onana can use his feet, but he can't. He's a shit shot stopper. So any manager, isn't going to do nothing about Andre Onana because he's had these problems under two managers. And probably, if we were watching him closely, he probably had similar. I mean, I've seen him make similar mistakes at Inter. And he's probably done it at Ajax as well. But that's their jobs to identify these players, scout them thoroughly, and identify their strengths and weaknesses and how that's going to fit into the squad, into the Premier League and stuff like that. And clearly, we didn't do those things under Richard Arnold and everybody else, and John Murtaugh. They didn't do those things. So, have blind faith then. He's not a top-level coach. Well, I'll tell you right now, Rajat, if we sack Ruben Amorim, we're not getting a top-level coach. So I don't know what fantasy you live in because there's not many top-level coaches out there. And he was on the list as the next generation of a top coach. He's young, he's inexperienced, but he's on that list. There's not many. We're not getting Ancelotti. We're not getting anybody else. I don't know what manager you think would come if we sack Ruben Amorim, but it ain't the manager. It's not a top-level coach because there's not many of them left. They're all getting old and they're pretty much getting to retirement. And the ones that are there, they're already in a job, and we're not going to get them. We're not going to get them out of a job, and we're not going to sack Ruben Amorim because we don't have the money to do so. So, whether you like it or not, we're going on this road. And if it fails, it fails. So be it. I'm not in charge. I didn't do this shit. I'm just going with my team and supporting my team and backing the club and hoping that it actually works out for everybody's sake. So, he has already lost 3 to 4 trophies this season, and he did it horribly. Well, I don't think so. You're just again, you can make the statement he lost 3 to 4 trophies this season. To add on, he did it horribly. I don't really know what that means. He did it horribly. How? In what way? Again, and this season, whether you like it or not, this season is essentially is pretty much a write-off because when you bring in a manager, that changes the whole entire identity of the team. I mean, I don't know what you want him to do. Be Jesus Christ and manage the. This isn't Football Manager. You don't just take over first season and win a quintuple and buy all the players you want. This isn't FIFA career mode. You don't just start up and load up and go in and sell 10 players and bring in a 5 and literally beat every team and win all the trophies possible. I mean, it's not going to happen. I didn't expect him to win any trophies this season. I was hoping that we would get a bounce and we would play better and maybe we could go up the table, but obviously I was mistaken because I didn't take into account the fact that he's going to change the entire system and formation and that a lot of these players are going to have an adaptability period where they're going to struggle to either adapt or they can't adapt. I didn't take that into account. That was my fault when I figured that we were going to do better. But I realized that quickly, and then I realized how quite impossible that is to happen and how quite different it is when you have a manager like any other team, like Palace. If they sack their manager, they go and get a manager that fits the system that they have there. But that's because that club is operating in a manner where they already have a structure in recruitment and system and ideas. So they go and get a manager that fits that. What we've done is we've hit the reset button and said, this system and style of play and formation that was set up by the previous regime with Erik ten Hag there is not the one that we want. We want to change it. So we hit reset. We're erasing all of that and we're going forward with our new project. And that's what's happening. So Lyle says sack Amorim and bring in whom? Start the whole shit show over. I mean, we're just I mean, but this is the thing. We're just starting now. Like, this is the thing that they're not understanding. We're starting now. The sacking of Eric Ten Hag is what they're saying for Ruben Amorim. So it would make no sense to do it to Ruben Amorim when we haven't even completed a season. The guy hasn't even been here for a year. And he hasn't even gotten a summer window or a preseason or any of that shit. So, you know, it's just an understanding of optics. Many people would have preferred him to come into in the summer so they wouldn't have to see this period. And maybe I sort of feel like that because I feel like now he's getting this scrutiny because they've seen him manage this thing, and it's a difficult thing to manage. And I would have probably preferred him to come in the summer. But at the same time, I can see the benefits of getting him in ASAP because he's now months. Everything that he did when he started in November to now, he would have had to start in the summer. And it would have taken an extra season. Maybe it wouldn't have been as shit, but he would still have to get accustomed to the Premier League, to the players at the squad. Maybe some players wouldn't have been sold that are going to get sold because he would have gave them an opportunity under his management, and we would have figured out mid-season that they're shit and they need to be moved on. So there's certain processes that were started in November that we're much further along now that are going to benefit us for next season, where we're further along in that progress. Instead of starting it for next season, we've started it during this season. So there's certain things in there that, you know, can happen. No, he left them like 5th, 8th with 4 points off top 4. No, he didn't. He did not. You were wrong because I looked this up already previously. And I can literally I can literally look at it right now, and I can literally see the league position that we were in. And maybe the point difference was different, but you're talking about 3 months into the season and 6 months into the season, or whatever. So the point difference is different, yes, but the position, no. We already spoke about this, or we already looked this up in previous shows that you weren't here for. But yes, I could tell you, Ruben Amorim. I mean, not Ruben Amorim. Eric Ten Hag. Where are we? Eric Ten Hag was sacked. I don't even know when he was sacked. I don't know what the date was. Yeah, so here you go. So Manchester United sacked Eric Ten Hag as their manager, effective immediately. Ruud van Nistelrooy took over as interim coach. The decision came as a poor start to the season, including a 2-1 defeat to West Ham on Sunday, leaving Manchester United 14th in the Premier League. So the position, you're totally wrong. The points, we already mentioned this previously before, stating that the point difference might have been much smaller. And sure, you could take that into account, but I can make arguments as to why that's happened because of the total amount of changes. When you make the certain amount of changes that we've made in the middle of the season, it is not normal like other clubs. It is not like a club. Like, let me tell you this. It's not like Aston Villa. If Villa were to sack Emery, right, they have a structure already in place. They have an identity of football. So what would happen is they would sack Emery and they would go get a manager that plays very similar to Emery. What we've done is we had a manager and a system set up by a previous regime that obviously the new regime was not continuing and did not follow and did not like. They gave Ten Hag the benefit of the doubt because they thought maybe, regardless of the system, they thought maybe he was the manager that they could work with, but go in the new direction. They obviously claimed that they made a mistake. He wasn't the right one to do so for whatever their reasons were. They sacked him. What we did was we bring in a manager that plays a totally different formation, a totally different style, has a totally different philosophy to what the team is built around. Now, the only option you have going forward is you take a wrecking ball to most of the team and you replace it with your new identity. So and I'm telling you this because when if Ruben Amorim was to be sacked, their one and sole job, Ineos, is to get a manager in that would play and be similar to Ruben Amorim. Because if they go and get a manager that plays a totally different system and has a totally different identity, then we're not doing anything different than we've done for the past 13 years. So what you're saying doesn't actually make sense. Keep getting new coach until find a new one. Well, I'll tell you what, we won't win for 100 years if we keep doing that. Because that's not how projects are built out. That's not how things work. Klopp and Pep had a plan. He don't. He has a plan, and Klopp and Pep, I don't know if you're understanding. You don't really understand this. Pep and Klopp did not walk into the clubs and lay down a plan for the entire club. They have people that work with them, such as the coaching staff. They then also, Pep Guardiola, if you knew anything about that, Pep Guardiola doesn't have anything to do with the transfers. He asks or says, I might need another centre mid. You know who does that job for him? The people above him and the team that work in the recruitment. They go and identify the players. They go to Pep. They tell Pep, we've identified these 2-3 players. Which one do you think you want? He makes his pick. They then go determine between the rest of them which one fits the best. They then sign that player for Pep Guardiola, and he then comes into the squad, and then Pep Guardiola coaches him and manages him. That's how that works. Klopp and Pep did not walk in and say, all right, we're going to do this, and everybody just said, yes, 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 yes. They were not the masterminds. They play an influential role. They're not the only ones. So that's not how that works either. They have a plan for a play style and a system, and if you say Ruben Amorim doesn't have a plan for a play style or system, then I don't know, what you're paying attention to, if you're paying attention at all, because they clearly do. So get Ancelotti. That's not happening. Again, you're living in fairy tale land. We're not getting Ancelotti. Ancelotti's not coming to us. We're not getting him. We can't afford to sack a manager, and we can't afford to hire another manager. So it's not going to happen. So in FIFA career mode, I win the quadruple in my first season, plus I get $1 billion investment. I mean, when I play Football Manager and I play career mode, FIFA career mode, I win every trophy the first season. It's quite good, and I have quite fun. But it's literally impossible to do so. Liverpool, being Liverpool, just transitioned from Klopp to Slot, and nobody, not a single person, not even the Liverpool fans, nobody said that Arne Slot was going to come in and win the Premier League in his first season. Nobody said that. Everybody thought that there was going to be a fall off just solely by switching the manager. Now, Liverpool run up above. Clearly, they're run pretty fucking well because they identified that Slot plays some sort of a similar football to Klopp. The change wasn't that big. Slot is a good manager as well. And since they're properly run from up above, it transitioned beautifully. That's what happens when you have a club that actually operates properly. It's not just about the manager. It's about everybody else as well. So we're not in that position. We haven't been in that position for 13 years. We haven't done one thing right. We haven't done a single thing right prior to Ineos coming in. Not a single thing right. So you're talking about 12 years of absolute fuck-ups and mistakes, and you think a manager is going to walk into Manchester United, have this team play exceptional football, get into the top 4, and then go and challenge for the Premier League within 2 seasons. It's literally impossible. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. You have to build the project. Projects take 3 to 4 seasons. Look how long it took Arteta to get Arsenal to where they were. Everybody wants to be... I mean, not everybody... I'm not saying everybody wants to be Arsenal, but if you told Manchester United fans in 2 years' time will be where Arsenal is, everybody will take it. But it doesn't happen overnight, and you can't do it in 1 to 2 seasons, especially us when we've been in the disaster that we've been. And to be fair, I mean, it's taken Arsenal 20 years to even get near here. And that's 20 years. We're on year 13 going into year 14. So we're pretty much on course hopefully for the return. Now, in United's history, there was a period where it took us 20 years and it took us 30 years. I hope it's not 30 years. 20 years, still far away, 6 years, but maybe we could be closer. Maybe we could cut it shorter than that. But, yeah. Amorim should be winning everything now already. Ineos should buy any player and sack Amorim and bring in Ancelotti. Did you know Klopp finished one season in 9th before he won the league? He did. And do you know that Arteta finished in the league 8th twice in a row, back to back? Yes, he went against West Ham, yes. So I looked that up. It's wrong to compare Klopp with Amorim. Klopp was a successful manager when he came to Liverpool. Amorim only had potential. And Axe, I appreciate that. Thank you. Because to me, that is a real statement. And I appreciate you saying that. Because that is true and that is accurate. And again, the circumstances are different. But what I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to compare them as managers. What I'm trying to say is like just the building of a project with a manager in place. It's not just about the manager. You have to have things around the manager. There has to be an environment and there has to be a proper plan, and the plan has to be executed properly as well. Otherwise, the manager he's not a pawn, but he's like he's like a knight, I guess, on the chessboard or something like that. He's important, but it's not the queen. The club is the queen. And if you don't properly protect and secure the queen from all aspects, you will lose the chess match. And that's what we've been doing. It's not just the manager. You can swap and change managers, but if we don't have that foundation for the manager. Now, I admit it's a bit of a gamble because, again, like Axe said, he is a man of potential. He's fairly young. He's not as experienced as Klopp was when he came to Liverpool, or Guardiola was when he went to City. There's a big difference there. But this is the project that we've set out on. It's one for the future. They've gone fairly young. I mean, Xabi Alonso was a name linked there. Tuchel maybe was the one that was a bit more experienced, but he's gone to England, and we ain't gonna get him out of there. And Xavi was also another one. Xavi's inexperienced. Xabi Alonso's quite inexperienced, although he won the league with them, and he went fairly far into the Champions League. But so did Ruben Amorim with Sporting. He won the league with them, and he done decently well in the Champions League with them for a team from Portugal. So, there's different circumstances, but yeah, and Klopp wasn't even that successful in terms of winning because he went to a UCL final with BVB, but he didn't win. He won, coming to Liverpool. And that was the next step. So, and as Lyle points out, when you lose a final, that's not success. So, maybe you take it in terms of the fact that like BVB aren't that club to be there because, you look at where BVB are now. So, maybe similar to what Mourinho said, achieving second and winning Europa League was one of his biggest achievements, and we all hated him for it because the standards were, they were much, much higher, and we couldn't accept that at that time because we didn't understand what was going on behind the scenes too much. So you could say in terms of, from a BVB standpoint, maybe that is success for them, but in terms of ultimate success would be winning those things. So Lyle says, what has Slot done differently? The only changes was they went more forward and has Salah in form. Klopp could have stayed and done the exact same thing. And that's the thing. And nobody predicted that Liverpool would go and win this league. Everybody thought that there was going to be some sort of a drop-off because it's a new manager. And everybody kind of figured that there's going to be some some growing pains. You know, there's going to be a little bit of a change. There might even be a little bit of, you know, a dip in mentality or attitude, because but clearly he was the right choice because they identified him. But Liverpool has had this project going on since Klopp has come in. Liverpool is very stable, and all they had to do was make sure that they got in the correct manager. They didn't have to do much. You know, if Klopp stayed, they would have been in and around there if they didn't win it again. And you would say if Klopp stayed, everybody would have said they have a very good chance of winning the league. But usually what happens is when you change managers, there is, you know, some changes that go on that cause instability, which you then have to sort out and weave. But they've been, since their project is so strong, and the, you know, the pick of a slot was so good. I honestly, I think that if they went with any other manager, they probably wouldn't win this league, because I think Slot, the way he plays his football, is so similar that it was like it was a seamless integration. And I don't think you can really do that with anybody else. I think that might be one out of the, you know, 100 managers there. But we're not in that position. I mean, we've been a mess anyway. And we've been jumping from manager to manager, you know, sort of play style to play style. It's about time we kind of set it. So I think that's what Ineos are doing right now. They are setting the identity and the play style with this manager. Now, in 3 years' time, or 2 years' time, he might not win us the Premier League, but he might have evolved us into a team that's actually decently good. And then the next step would be to go get another manager that fits this play style. But we don't have anything. We have to build something. Everybody wants instant results. I don't understand where it's going to come from, because we haven't had an identity. We don't have an identity. We don't have a strong playing style. We haven't had one. So you're going to have to build it somewhere. Somebody's going to have to build it. Somebody's going to have to take that brunt of the work and do the dirty work to build it out. And if it goes decently well, you can continue on with him, and maybe you push forward with him, kind of like with Arteta. I mean, you know, they've carried on with him. He still hasn't won it. He's not going to win it. Now they're in the Champions League, and, you know, there's a potential that they could go into the final there. Yet to be seen. But they've carried on with him. They still look very good. They still look like they continue to improve, and he's been there for 5 seasons now. He's going to go into his 6th season. He still hasn't won. He still hasn't won it. But they're still improving. They're still becoming better. They're still becoming a stronger team. So it depends on the circumstances, as that happens. How come Milan don't need that much and they won the title in 2021? Well, I can't tell you because I don't know much about Milan, but that's not how things work. And in terms of Milan, I mean, they won in 2021. It's 2025. Where are they now? So, again, you know, the point is we're not just trying to build to win the league once and then wipe our hands clean and go back to being shit. You're trying to build the club up to the likes of Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool didn't do anything for 20 years. Now Liverpool are above us, and they're better than us, and they're dominant. And City did the same thing, and Arsenal are doing the same thing. That's what you need. It has to be longevity. It's not just about winning the title once, because Milan have fallen off a cliff. And they sacked their manager mid-season, and they got this manager in, and this manager he's not having a good time either. And many fans don't like him either. So, you know, it's a problem. Was trolling about Onana. Everybody is able to have their own opinion. You can, but I just don't agree with a lot of what you're saying. You're not being rude. We're just having a fiery discussion. It's fine. It's fine. You're not being rude, and you don't need to apologize, Rajat. There's no apologies. You didn't necessarily say anything wrong. You know what I mean? We're just having a good passionate discussion. That's all. It's a heavily opinionated and heavily passionate discussion. That's all that is. There's no hard feelings. We love you, Rajat, and I'm glad that you're in here and you're telling me how you feel, and you're getting in here and you're getting in the comments, because that's all I care about at the end of the day, and you're keeping it respectful. Now, if you called me a big fat idiot or worse, then that would be quite disrespectful. But if we have differing opinions, I don't care, Rajat. I love that. I love when people come in here. That's why I like people like you, or like Axe, or like even Almo, who was in here in the beginning, and me and Almo disagree quite heavily as well on certain things. You know, but I like these people that come in here. It's good. And even Lyle, like me and Lyle, we agree on a lot of stuff. But we don't always agree on certain things, but we agree more so than we disagree. But it's good to have everybody. It's good to have a nice collection. We need the people that heavily disagree and have a different way of thinking, and we need people that also have agreed. That's what a community is. You know, when you live in a community, think of your street. You might have some people that you get along with well, and then you might have some other people there that they're not bad people, but you're just like, why did they do that? Why are they like this? I don't like how they, you know, cut their grass at 8 o'clock in the morning, but he's a good guy. But I just don't agree that he cuts his grass at 8:30 in the morning on a Saturday when I'm trying to sleep. You know what I mean? Shit happens. But like, we all get along. We all get along. And at the end of the day, we're not, you know, we don't go out and beat up anybody in the street or assault them and stuff like that. We just have disagreements. So, Milan fell off when Maldini left the board. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. This is why, and I get what you're saying, Rajat. And maybe I'm taking out on you a little bit, because it's not really just you. It's the sentiment of when you say things like the way you're thinking. I go into like social media mode, because I'm very invested in football, Twitter, and stuff like that, and I see a lot of opinions online, and it's almost like a sentiment of that, where there's a lot of people. And what happens is online, they get it's very like tunnel visioned, and it's always just one thing. It's always one, and usually what happens is it's always the manager. Then at some point we start complaining about the hierarchy. That lasts for about 2 weeks, and then everybody starts talking about one single player or one manager. When I feel like the discussion at some point in the entire Manchester United fan base, the focus has to shift to the overall project. And I know maybe that's not exciting for people, and maybe, you know, as well online there's also people just try to get likes and clicks and interactions, so there's always that. So you got to you have to sift through that bullshit as well, because some people just say things just to say things, and it's not a genuine opinion, and they try to be, you know, it's not their genuine opinion. They just try to be very polarizing so they could get some money out of social media, which is an unfortunate thing, but it is the way things are. But you know, this happens a lot where it gets very tunnel visioned. And I just feel like if the majority of the fans can actually take a breath and be like, all right, I have my criticisms about Ruben Amorim, and maybe I don't necessarily like these things about him, but at the same time, if I'm the manager and I'm put in his position and I'm looking at other things around me that doesn't necessarily have to do with me coaching or managing, and I'm looking at, you know, players that are in the squad, or the issues that we have with money, or the people up above me that are supposed to be doing the job to help me, I just feel like when I would be put in that manager position, I'd be like, yeah, I'm expected to perform in a certain way, but also like, I have issues here I got to deal with. I have issues here I got to deal with. A lot of this shit is out of my hands, and I need the club to get their shit together so we can work as a team and we can actually do something. And I just feel like the general discussion, it becomes a lot of noise, where a lot of people that are very emotional and get very angry, they just target one thing. And then that becomes their sole focus, and it's like a tirade of 6 months of, you know, like, for example, Marcus Rashford. I've said things about Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford was never my sole target, but he's there to have a discussion about. But there were so many people that were like, get rid of Rashford, get rid of Rashford. You get rid of Rashford, the problems are fixed. They do the same thing for Bruno. Get rid of Bruno, get rid of Bruno. You get rid of Bruno, the problems are fixed. They did it the same thing to Eric Ten Hag. If you get rid of Ten Hag, you get rid of Ten Hag. Ten Hag is the problem. He's the only problem. You get rid of Ten Hag, everything is fixed at Manchester United. We'll be perfect and we'll be golden. You know, we did it to Mourinho. We did it to Solskjaer. We always do this, where somehow at some point, somebody becomes the main sole focus, and it is like literally they are the only one that is the problem, and it's not the truth. And when we do that, it leads to a place where there is allowed to be like excuses made for the rest of the club failing, and therefore those things never get corrected, and we never actually make forward progress. So Axe, as I am telling you, I am not the storm. I am not the typhoon. Oh, was I on? Was I mute? Oh my god, I was on mute. Um, yeah, sorry about that. I muted the mic. So what was I saying? Because I lost my train of thought. It was off of it was off of Rajat's point where I said where he said if they win the Europa, then it sort of helps the year out, but not really much. And I said you're right in that aspect. I said because it's like putting a cherry on top of a pile of shit. I mean, the cherry's nice, and maybe it makes it look a little bit nicer because it's a nice cherry, but it's still a pile of shit. You know what I mean? It's still on top of a pile of shit. But what I will say is that, you know, I guess it's to each their own how they go to accept this sort of season, because this season, um, this season is just one that is it's gone wrong for numerous amounts of reasons. I think Ten Hag has failed us. I think Ineos made the wrong choices. And we're going through a period of change. Amorim is one that has to navigate through this period of change. So there's many different aspects. I don't think we can pinpoint and just say it's all Amorim. I don't think we can say, I mean, you could probably say it's mostly more of Ineos' fault because they are the ones in charge, right? And they made most of these decisions. So you could put more of the blame on them. But even, you know, Ten Hag was one that disappointed me because in my mindset, the way I went about it was, listen, there was this uncertainty about your job. You almost lost it. I think we said that the transfers were good, so we felt like the transfer window was a good one, and we felt like we should go and start the season strong. And the way it went, it wasn't strong at all. We didn't look very good in preseason. I was questioning that. I was questioning why the team as a whole looks like they're nowhere near ready for the start of the season. We then went into the start of the season, and I was like, all right, start of the season. Hopefully we find our way once we get a couple games under our belt. And it just didn't go that way. And I just felt let down by Erik Ten Hag because I was like, if I was in that position, I know that I must do everything because I must start the season strong. I cannot start the season how I started in my second season and my first season. It cannot happen. We cannot have a slow start. We need to have a strong start, and it just didn't happen for one reason or another, but I felt let down by that, and that led to me at the end saying, well, in that part, he failed for me. I wanted him to have a strong start, and I was like, again, and I was like, it's just gonna be more of the same, and that's when I wanted the change of the manager. Now I didn't expect Ruben Amorim to be the manager. I didn't know who was going to be the manager. I didn't know who we were going to get. So my thinking at that time was, if we sack Ten Hag, we get a new manager and we should be able to get a bounce. But the decision they made in getting Ruben Amorim, and the decision that Ruben Amorim made, saying that I'm going to play my formation, and I'm not going to conform to the team, and the team's going to have to conform to me, and because of that, it's going to be rough, and it's going to be an issue. That kind of changed everything. And then from that point on, after probably after a month and a half, so somewhere around December, it became quite clear and obvious to me that this season was no longer a season of like something that we can salvage. It's more of just a season of that. It's almost like a resetting season. It's almost like a training season in which that, like, we're resetting things. We're gonna go in a new direction. We're gonna use this season to get further ahead for next season. So, but at the same time, we still had some things to play for. We were in some cups. We weren't for the Premier League ever, so that was out the window right away. But we were in the Carabao. We were in the FA Cup. We didn't win those. We won those previously. I think when you think about it in that manner, if Erik ten Hag was still the manager and it was still this season, if he was to win the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, or he won both again, I think most people would say that that isn't enough for him. So that I kind of pushed to the side as well. But we're here in the Europa League, and the Europa League is a European Cup competition. It's not the Champions League, but it's still a European Cup, and it has many important factors in terms of money. And it can get us into the Champions League, and we're still here. So I hope that he can do that and win that. And that will help in terms of, the season was a very messy one, and it wasn't a good one, but it will help immensely for Ruben Amorim, his optics, and even for the club in general, if we do win the Europa League, because he could say, well, I won a European trophy. It's going to give some backing and some belief in him from fans as a manager, but also maybe as players as well, and from the upper management. So hopefully we do go and do this. Axe says, I'm telling you the truth, this club won't put its shit together as long as the Glazers are in charge, and you know this. Maybe not, but I mean, listen, I'm not naive about that, Axe. There is still major problems that they are here. And it is almost like we are fighting with one hand behind our back and one leg cut off. But at the same time, to be fair, and then I think you can make arguments both ways. But to be fair, we were successful when they took over the club. Now, we did have Ferguson, but we continued to be successful after they took over. And I think that's because the management team that we had at the time, they didn't change it. All they did was take over the club, and really just focus on money and commercial. But they didn't do too much things. What happened when Ferguson retired and they gutted the entire place and they put in their people? That was the real issue. Now, this is why I hope that Ineos, while we can maybe be a little bit concerned about their lack of football experience, I don't think, I see them differently in terms of the Glazers live in America. They have no clue what's going on at the football club. I think that was a major issue right off the bat. Sir Jim said it in his interview, and I'm glad he said it because I was saying that before he even took over anyway. One of the major issues was that, yes, I understand that they're bad for the club in many ways, but one of the biggest issues is that the fact that, like, they don't know what's going on at the club when they live in America, and Richard Arnold sends them a balance sheet, and they look at it, and they're like, all right, the club's doing all right. We're making money, we're getting these deals here and there, whatever. But they have no understanding about the football. And when you make a signing for 80 million and that player's playing like shit, you think Richard Arnold's going to tell them, yeah, remember that guy, Maguire? Or Or Anthony that we signed for 85 million and is supposed to be the next superstar. Yeah, we kind of fucked up on that one. Like, they weren't telling them that. Now, I hope they're still concerned for their lack of experience and in terms of being successful in football. But one thing that I do like is that they have shortened the leash or shortened the rope on what's going on at Manchester United. They're there. They're there always. They're working there. They're showing up to the matches. They're watching the players and they're making decisions, and they're heavily involved with what's going on inside of the club. And that might just be enough for us to actually be good again, because I would love nothing more than the Glazers to go, but unfortunately, we're stuck with them. So we have to try and find a way where we can be successful again. And I think that comes with a proper management team. And I'm hoping that it's Ineos. Because I think it's probably the best bet that we've got. I don't think there was any other management team out there that would have came in. And the Glazers certainly never employed one since post Sir Alex. And I think this is probably the closest we've had in 13 years. So I don't know if it's going to go to what we needed to, but I certainly think it's our best chance. So, yeah. Jim Ratcliffe let Ten Hag go late, maybe. Well, he said that. He said that, Rajat. He said that they made a mistake. And I think the point that he gave us, he said some things in that interview I didn't agree with. He was talking about, certain budget things I think was nonsense. He was talking about the wages I didn't agree with. I don't think he necessarily... I don't know if he made his point clear enough of what he was trying to say, or he just didn't know what he was talking about. He was talking about the wage bill, and he was talking about Ruben Amorim doing well when you look at the wage bill and you look at the players. I don't think those things correlate. I don't really understand what he was really trying to say there. I don't understand how that really makes sense. But one of the things that he did say, and that I do agree with, is that when he talked about the decision about keeping Ten Hag in the summer, he said that we couldn't, he said we did a review and we couldn't identify if it was Ten Hag or it was the environment, because the environment was not a good one and it wasn't in place. And we didn't have the time to really review the environment and review the manager inside of the environment to make that decision. They gave him some more time after that, and he said it became quite more clear that they deemed that the manager was also a problem because they felt like they made the environment better. And that, so I was like, okay, I'll accept that as an explanation as to why you made that fuck up. And to be fair, there's not much that you could really do in that situation as well. If you can't tell if it's the manager and the environment, I think you then have to give the manager the benefit of the doubt. But whatever transpired from the preseason forward to the point he got sacked, clearly they saw things in there that they were not very happy about, and which led them to them being sacked. So, need Trent on a free deal. Yeah, I'm kidding. I hope you're kidding, because absolutely no way. No way. I honestly thought Rude was going to be caretaker manager until end of the season. Did not expect Amorim to go mid-season. To be honest, when Amorim's name came up, I felt like there was going to be a back and forth in which Amorim was going to be able to negotiate that, listen, I got to stay here for the remaining of the season, but I would be more than happy for you to come in the summer, when things are settled. And we all know that's what Ruben Amorim wanted anyway. The thing here is, this is what's in the balance for me. Ineos made a decision that they were like, we can wait and we could keep a caretaker in. But what happens when you keep a caretaker in? Maybe this season would have been a little bit more stable. Maybe it would have gone a little bit more better. But the problem is when you're looking into a long-term vision, all you're doing is delaying the starting process of Amorim. So all the things that have kind of happened now, and I'm not talking about necessarily just in results, but all the processes that's going on behind Ruben Amorim, all these things would then start in June or July, whenever the preseason starts, right? So everything that Ruben Amorim started doing from November, you'd start doing them in July, which means that all you're doing is delaying any progress that you would make, and it would then go further into next year. It would be another year, another season, and you're delaying. I think why they did that is because they came up with the idea of that, listen, this might, when you make changes, it's going to be bumpy and it's not going to be smooth and straightforward anyway. There's no guarantee with Ruud as caretaker that we're going to be successful. I think they took the gamble of, let's get Amorim in, let's start working towards the future now instead of delaying it 6 months and starting then. That way we can technically be 6 months ahead of the new process. Now, there is a gamble to be, there's still, it's still yet to be seen if that's actually going to pay off, because we haven't gotten there yet. Obviously, it's gone the way it's gone. Now we got to wait for next season and see if that decision has actually paid off, or it was another mistake and it didn't pay off. And what they should have actually done is kept the caretaker, let Amorim come in normal circumstances, have a summer window, have a proper preseason, and start his career from there. Because the problem that the one issue that's gone on is the results haven't been good. His sort of name, or his, like, how people were looking at him and felt about him, has sort of been tainted by these results. But again, there's many other factors as to why this is happening. It's a lot of changes in one season, middle of the season, and I think it's quite unfair in some aspect, depending all on him. So we got to look to see if it's actually going to pay off. Now, if it goes disaster mode, then I think we can all fairly just be like, well, Ineos completely fucked up. They shouldn't have hired him mid-season. I mean, many people are making that argument now, but the thing is, it can pay off. And people can turn their opinions around on it and be like, you know, I was saying, you know, in February, it was a mistake for Ineos to bring in Amorim in November. They should have just let him come in the summer. But if it goes quite well next season, everybody can then just be like, you know what? I thought it was a wrong thing, but actually it's paid off. And we're actually much further ahead than we probably would have been if Amorim just came in the summer. So we got to see how it goes. That's the thing that's in my mind. Like, that thing can go both ways, and it could be good or bad. But that's kind of what I'm looking at, because I think that's what they decided on, was that they said that, like, they were like, we can start now and we should make more progress for next season so that next season will be better. Instead of waiting until June, take the initial hit, right? For now, it's going to be ugly, but then hopefully next season it's going to look much, much better. Kind of didn't like Ineos and the board when they were forcing Ruben to leave January when he was wanting to win them another title again. Yeah, and I feel that. And I sort of feel that too, because I'm caught in between both sides. Like, part of me would prefer that the manager came at a proper time so that he's not taking this hit, because I feel bad for him in that aspect. I feel bad for him because I feel like it's almost like it was never going to go well. It was never going to go well for him initially. It was always going to be a problem, especially when you look at even the other managers, and not to compare them, but just in terms of the project. When you look at the Klopps, when you look at the Peps, when you look at the Artetas, even their first season, even them getting a proper preseason and getting some transfers in, even them, their first season was not good. It was a struggle. It was one of inconsistency. It was very up and down. They weren't good. So to do that to a manager, when you take all of United's other problems, but then to do it in the middle of a season and change so much, it just never was going to go good for him. The only way it would have gone of decency is if they were like, we like the philosophy and the football that Ten Hag has implemented here, and while we don't like Ten Hag, we're going to sack Ten Hag, but we're going to get a manager that's very close to that philosophy. Because they went in a completely different direction than that, there's no room for that either. So, you liked Van de Beek, but my opinion, that was a very odd and unnecessary signing to get done because Man United had a Van der Sar connection. it just, again, Rajat, that's just one of bad recruitment. Again, I will say, like, I won't blame it all on Eric Ten Hag, but he was a part of it. But unlike most people, because everybody just says Eric Ten Hag set us back 5-10 years, I will say the transfers under him, which, again, he wasn't the only one. There was Merton Arnold, and they have to sign off for him, and they gave him the leeway, and they gave him all the power anyway, because they're clueless and they didn't know what they were doing. Ineos isn't going to do that. They're going to work with the manager, but he doesn't. Ruben Amorim does not have the be all and end all. They're going to identify the targets. And maybe Ruben might not necessarily, he might want one player over another, but he might get the other player. And that's because the management team is building this team, and it's not just about Ruben. Because if Ruben fails, we have to continue. Even if Ruben doesn't fail, maybe we get to a point where Ruben can only take us so far, and we got to take the next step. And maybe there's somebody else out there that comes along the way in the next couple of years that can continue on the project and bring the project up further. We have to stop this. We have to stop this. This cycle of the project revolves solely around the manager, and when the manager fails and the manager ends up getting sacked, we have to bin the project and start completely fresh. That has to stop. So what they've done, it has to start now with this project. We cannot go in the cycle again. So even if Amorim gets sacked at some point, the philosophy of football and identity still has to continue, and we still have to get a manager that is similar, or fits that profile or that mold. That's what has to continue after that. Although they will have their own challenges, because if this fails miserably, people are going to turn against Ineos as well. So they're going to have to deal with that. But Lyle says Ineos has installed people who know football: Barada, Wilcox, and Vavell. Yes, that is the good thing that keeps me that keeps me hopeful, because while Sir Jim, I will say, I don't listen. Here's the things about Sir Jim, and I'll say it right now so that we're quite clear. That whole he's a football fan, and that he's a lifelong Manchester United fan. I don't buy that shit. I don't buy that. If he is, he's not a fan like me, you, RSV, Axe, Lyle, Rajat, Ray, anybody else. He's not a fan like us. He's not a fan that constantly grew up investing all this time into Manchester United, talking about it, watching the matches, reading the news, putting out opinions. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. He's one of those guys, and I'm sure you know some people out there. I know quite a few of them, because living in America, that's how it is. Football is not the first sport. So you get some people out here that go, yeah, I'm a fan of Manchester United. And you start having a 3-minute conversation with them, and you realize that they don't watch the games. They don't know shit about the squad, but they claim to be a so-called fan of Manchester United, right? And that's with like all sports anyway. But there's always these people that go, yeah, I'm a fan of that team. I'm a big fan. And then you actually get a big fan who actually devotes their time to it. They have a 3-minute conversation with them, and then you realize, yeah, they're just one of those people that kind of just, they're not really invested. They just pick the team. And they say they're a fan of that sort of team, but they don't invest their time. And Sir Jim is that person to me. I don't think Sir Jim knows that much about football. I don't think he's not a die-hard United fan. He might have been a guy that says, yeah, I like United, and I like a little bit of football, but that's, if I have a list of 10 things, it's probably number 11 in my opinion. So when those things are said, I don't buy that bullshit. What I will say is, though, and what encourages me, is that the fact that at the very least, he's got people like Wilcox, Vavell, and Barada, who are football people, who have been working in this aspect, and even Blanc, which I still don't know what Blanc does. I don't know where Blanc has been, because nobody talks about Blanc, but at least Blanc also has football experience. So in terms of the hierarchy, right now, it's like 2 versus 4, because what's his name? Baldy with the glasses. Sir David Brailsford, he's also one that doesn't have football knowledge or football experience. So to me, the way I look at it is like there's Sir Jim and Sir David Brailsford lack football experience slash knowledge, but then we have four people that are basically running it, and have been hired that have football experience and football knowledge, which makes me feel a little bit more at ease. And it's certainly better than before, where Richard Arnold had no football experience. John Murtaugh was never supposed to be in the position he was, and Darren Fletcher was in a position that he should have never been either. And when you compare that hierarchy to this hierarchy, it's miles better, miles. Oh, and Ashworth equal DA if I didn't know. Lyle says delaying, well put, that makes sense. I mean, next season could have been what we're going through now, and process is officially starting. Getting the new system started now already could pay off, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say, and that's what they said. Anyway, that's kind of their thought process, from my understanding, from what's been said and released in the news. And again, it's a gamble. There's no sure bet, but when you do think about it in that aspect, think about it. When Klopp came in, when Pep came in, and when Arteta took over, if you take all three of their projects, their first season and even their second season weren't great seasons. And you could say more so for Arteta, because he came in and he did something similar to Ruben, where he's unproven. He's the most like Ruben Amorim. He was inexperienced. He's unproven. He's fairly young, and he was, in a certain aspect. And in fact, I think Amorim actually had more experience than Arteta, because Ruben was managing matches in the Champions League and whatnot, and Arteta was not. But, Arteta had two back-to-back pretty much shit seasons in the league. I think, what did he do? He won the Carabao Cup. But other than that, struggles. Klopp and Pep, like, first two seasons, they weren't great either. For what they've accomplished and previously, and their standards. So when you think about it in that way, it does make sense, because you're like, well, if we get Amorim and we hire him in June, this whole process that he's gone through since November, he would just be starting it in June, and he wouldn't have an idea, because he wouldn't have necessarily learned anything, because some of the things you can't learn until you're experiencing them. You have to learn as you go. Especially with some managers like this. I mean, even Klopp and Pep, they were still learning and adapting as they went as well. I remember, when Pep came in and he's trying to play his tiki-taka Spanish football in the Premier League, it didn't go well in the beginning, because he had to make adjustments. He had to learn. He had to make some changes. He had to adapt as well, and he had to make some changes. And that came with just time through experience. So it does make sense that you make an argument about it, because you'd be like, well, we're doing this because we know it's gonna be rough in the beginning, but if we do it in August next season, it's gonna be rough then, and we're only gonna delay it. So our thinking is that if we get ahead of it, but next season will go smoother, and next season will go better. But there's no guarantee on that. It still could go shit, and it still could have been maybe the wrong decision, and maybe they didn't factor into the fact of that, like, well, when he comes here, it might be so bad in terms of that, the way it's been, the results haven't been great, that it does damage to Ruben's image. It does damage to Ruben's backing by the fans, and maybe it does damage to Ruben himself. So those are the things. They've taken a gamble, they've taken a risk. I will say that at the very least, we're actually trying to be proactive about things, where in the past we were very reactive. I think the reactive way would have been, we would have kept Ruud as caretaker manager. We wouldn't have figured out a manager until the season ends, which would have been around May. And then we would have made the decision. We would have been very behind. We don't know who the transfer targets are for the manager. The way we've gone about it, it might have not led to good results in the immediate, but in terms of if you're looking forward, we have our manager. He started the system. He started the style of play. He started identifying which players can adapt and can be part of the system, which players can't. He's been with them in training. He knows which ones have good attitudes, good mentalities, poor mentalities, poor attitudes, and he has a better idea. He's also played teams in the Premier League, so he understands the football a little bit better than he did prior to coming in. he understands the league a little bit better. He understands the competition, the difficultyness better. And he was also probably identified targets in the squad where he needs to strengthen for next season. So hopefully, if those things go well and those things are dealt with in a proper manner, as a football club should properly deal with those things, next season should go much better. And it should be a much more one of positive, and one that we can get behind and feel a little bit more proud, and actually have something to back there. And that's what I'm hoping for. So, RSV says, we've been papering over the cracks since right before Sir Alex left, and he papered over them hard at the very end. Right now, the cracks are massive, and we are no longer papering over the cracks. Well, I think that I don't even think the cracks are massive. I think the cracks have pretty much exploded. They're not cracks, they're holes. You know what I mean? I don't think they're cracks anymore. I think they're holes. And we shouldn't be papering over them, anymore. But you continue on to say, RSV, like, for example, LVG papered over the cracks after Leicester 5-3 Man United, and Eric Ten Hag after 4-0 Brentford, and Mourinho's whole philosophy is defensive football, which became outdated when he joined us. Yeah, and I mean, in the recruitment, we've papered over the cracks as well, because, again, we never solved the issues for a long-term thing. I mean, the striker position is one that comes to mind to me, that we've been papering over the cracks for years. I mean, Martial was supposed to be, I guess, an answer to that, but he also started out on the wing. He wasn't a striker. So he wasn't even a striker. When I think of the likes of strikers going from Cavani to Zlatan Ibrahimovic, getting Igalo on loan, like, those aren't answers to a project, to a future. Even getting Cristiano, as much as I love Cristiano, as much as I wanted Cristiano to always return to Manchester United, it wasn't necessarily an answer to a project that it has sustainability, and not a short-term goal. And plus, I think they did the Ronaldo thing for commercialism anyway. And most of the signings were commercialism anyway. So they were kind of papered over the cracks because, at that time, we'd complain and bitch and moan about a striker. They'd go and get Zlatan, and most of us would be like, well, Zlatan's experienced, and he scores some goals for us, and we're like, okay, and we take it for a season or two, and then after a season or two, we're like, yeah, we still need another striker, though, because now Zlatan's finished. And then, Cavani was there, and we loved Cavani because he scored some good goals, but then we're like, yeah, but Cavani's always injured, and he misses a lot of games, and he's only getting older, and, we need a new striker. We've been doing that forever, and that's why I think, listen, this Ineos project might not succeed. I'm not saying it's going to, but when I look at what we've been doing for 13 years compared to what we're doing now, this is heading in a better direction, or it has at least the grounds to head in a better direction than anything we've done in the past. Because we're scouting young, we're bringing in young, potential, good talents that can be here for a long term. There's some sort of foundation is being laid, and it's just something that it's certainly different. It's different. It might not work because there's no guarantee anything can work in life, no matter what you do. You might try to do things 20 different ways. But what I feel like is, prior to Ineos, 12 years in a row, we did the same thing. We never changed. There was never a change. They told us things would change, and it wasn't real. They operated the same way for 12 years. With these guys, we're going in a different direction. It might fail, they might fail, but at the very least, we can say we're not doing like we did before. There is a chance that this can actually work because we're not doing what failed for 12 years in a row. We're doing something different. And that gives me hope, and that I will at least can back, because a change of direction is better. It's better to do. I'd rather fail at doing something new than do the same shit over and over again and keep failing. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Yes, you go into the unknown. Yes, there's no guarantee that anything will be successful, but I'd rather fail doing something new than can just going down the same path, which we know will never be successful. It just doesn't make sense. So, RSV says it was all great for the short term, but the long term, it turned out to be a recipe for disaster by adapting to the player's strengths. Ollie did the exact same things. 100% agree. I just said the same thing without reading your comments. So these trophies that have won under those managers have glazed over the problems and environment of failure created by those managers, previous board and ownership. 100% agree with you, and that's why we need to change. But, you know, to change is difficult. Change is painful. Change is a process. Change takes a long time. Change has ups and downs. Change is something that is not a nice process. It's actually very uncomfortable. And that's another thing that Sir Jim said, that while I do think he said it kind of in a bullshit manner, it's not necessarily wrong though. I think Sir Jim said it sort of in a PR way because he's trying to bide some more time, and he kind of feels the heat, and he doesn't want that heat, and he doesn't want it. But in that sense, he's not actually wrong. I mean, change is very uncomfortable. Nobody likes change because change brings up a lot of problems, and change puts you in situations where, there's uncertainty. You don't know if things are going the right way or going the wrong way. You don't know if they're going to work out or not. And people in life, many people don't like change. Many people don't like to take a risk to change on something. The best way I always see this is like, it's sort of like a relationship. I've said this about Marcus Rashford. It's like when two people are in a relationship. There are people out there, and I don't live my life like this, and I never agreed with it. And for quite some time, I never really understood it until I got older and I learned more things about it. But there are people out there that live lives that they will stay with a partner solely for the fact that they've been with this partner for 6 years. They've been doing, they go to the store together, they watch movies, but they don't love that partner anymore. And in some situations, they quite hate that person, but they don't feel comfortable in taking the step to change it, because what change means is that person will no longer be there. They will either be on their own, or they have to go and find somebody else, and they don't know who they're going to find if they find somebody, but they don't know if they're going to find somebody. And if they find somebody, they don't know what that person's going to be like. That person can be worse than what they have. So some people just rather just stick to where we are, and you can't do that. So this is a similar thing. Like, we have hit the point in place where enough is enough. We can't continue, like everything RSV is saying, that can no longer continue. They've hit the point where whether they like to paper over the cracks or not, they can't continue to paper over the cracks. It has gotten to the point where you can no longer do it, because the cracks aren't cracks, they're holes. And to fix the holes, we might as well just, rip the foundation down, build a brand new one, a strong foundation, but build a new one that doesn't have cracks and one that doesn't have holes, and build it and make sure that it's strong, and we move forward from there. Axe says, I won't let you call next season Amorim's first season. Well, I mean, I'm not going to call it necessarily a first season, but it does feel like that to me in a sort of way. It will be the first real test, the real season, to see how he's going to do and how well he's going to handle things. Because, again, this season is just one of chaos and a mess. And I can't properly judge the manager when there's so many circumstances that have to not do with him and have to do with the club. For me, a proper season for a manager, this is quietly unfound, what we've done. It's very uncommon. I can't even think of examples of this sort of happening to the extent that we've done it, in terms of not even just sacking and replacing a manager mid-season, but changing the entire identity, system, and philosophy of the football that you're going to try and play. I can't even think of an example like that happening in the middle of November. So for me, it almost is like his first real season, because that season's going to determine. Listen, I don't think he'll get, even if it goes bad, I don't think he'll get sacked mid-season. I don't think it'll happen. So he's going to get the whole season. He's going to get the whole season regardless. And they're going to let it play out, and they're going to let it see what happens until the final game of the season. And to me, that is going to be his proper first season, because he's going to get a transfer window, a summer transfer window. He's going to be able to get some players. He's going to be able to do a preseason, and he's going to be able to go through the normal processes that managers go through. So for me, it's going to be his first proper season, I will say. It's not his first season per se, because this is his first season, but although it's half a season or whatever, but his first proper season in proper ways, getting a summer window or getting a transfer window, which is always the summer window, because January is basically not even a real window, but getting a summer window, getting a preseason in, and going forward with the club and seeing how it goes from there. And I think that then he can be judged more fairly, based off of what happens. But again, I'm not going to say I'm going to judge him one way or another, because I'm going to do it in real time as it goes. And there's many circumstances and factors that happens. It depends, if we're losing matches, how are we losing the matches? In what manner are we losing the matches? Are we winning matches? Are we winning more? I have no clue what's going to happen. So I'm just going to do it as it goes, but I'm going to give him his fair shot. I'm going to give him his transfer window. I'm going to give him his preseason. We're going to go into the season, and we're going to take it week by week, match by match, and we evaluate him as we go. And we could start off positively, and if by January it turns into a shit show, then we can say, well, listen, it's not good. It's not good, and maybe we have to rethink everything. It'll be his first full season. They've all taken a gamble. Ruben could have declined the move too. He could have, but again, he clearly wanted to come to Manchester United. I mean, he had a little bit of work experience at Manchester United prior. There's something about Manchester United that he really wanted. The way he speaks about Manchester United, the way he speaks about that he had to take the job. There was something about Manchester United. He really wanted to come here for one reason or another. There was something about the club that he liked or loved, that he wanted to come here, because he could have, in my opinion, he could have gone to a numerous amounts of any other clubs, ones that are probably not as much as a mess as we are. So he took a gamble as well, but he really wanted to come here, and he really didn't want to miss the opportunity to manage Manchester United, because if that opportunity is there and you decline it, you might not ever get it again. Even if you continue to go on to do good things as a manager, there's no guarantee for him as well. He could have went somewhere else, taken the absolute piss, and he'd be out of contention forever. He could have went somewhere, done very well, and maybe he'd still be in contention, but also they'd be like, well, you turned us down, so we don't really want you. So he took it, and it was a gamble on his part as well. So Axe says, yeah, it's a lot of money. Weghorst, yeah, he was another one. This is what I'm saying. Like, we have to start doing things. And hopefully, I'm encouraged by Ineos's, mainly the summer, because the January was just Dorgu. But even Dorgu, even the acquisition of Dorgu, I think is a good acquisition. I think he's going to be a good player. I think Dorgu is going to be one where we can say that he was actually a good signing. We got to go forward more and see what happens, and hopefully, there's not too much turmoil at United, and we can grow and develop these players. But so far with their signings, yeah, I think we have to get these. We got to sort out the striker. We got to sort out some positions. We have to do it, and they can't be paper over the crack type of signings, which I don't think they're doing, which is encouraging to me, because I think the signings that we're getting in, that Ineos have done, they don't feel like, to me, paper over the crack signings, which is what we used to do in the past. We used to do a mixture of these commercial, overinflated, overpaid, overpriced signings, and then the rest of the budget, we didn't have any money, and they were just paper over the crack signings, so we can get in our Sancho because he's popular on social media and we market him and he's a baller and he's English. I'm encouraged by the way they're going about it. Now, They might still get a player wrong here and there because, again, nobody's going to get perfect on transfer targets. It doesn't happen. It's impossible. Even at Klopp, some of the signings Klopp at Liverpool, their signings didn't all go to plan. Guardiola at City, all their signings didn't go to plan either. But they got more good than bad, and that's what you have to aim for. Listen, I'm not against growing Hojlund, but it just depends on what options are out there. Again, I will tell you this: if they tell me we can sell Rasmus, don't take a PSR hit, bring in Delap, and bring in an experienced striker, I will strongly consider selling Rasmus. If they tell me we're bringing in Delap, no experienced striker, but we're also going to sell Rasmus Hojlund, I would rather keep Rasmus for one more season because I'd rather have 2 to 3 strikers than 1 to 2 strikers. Because again, Xerxes, I still don't know what's his best fit. Are we gonna go for him in the 9 or are we gonna go for him in the 10? I don't know. I'm still in between. And I think that still sort of has to play out. My thing is the depth in the striker. So to me, if they tell me, I'd like to give Rasmus one more season. He looks really, really bad right now. Like, really, really bad. And I'm really, really concerned about that because he's regressed monumental. And last season, I was very hopeful of him. I had high hopes for him. I felt like there was a good amount of potential there to work with. And I feel like all of that is gone. And I'm very scared for that purpose because I just don't know the damage that has been done to him. I don't know if we're going to be able to get any sort of the best out of him next season and grow him. I would like to do so, but then again, at the same time, Rasmus was a signing made by the previous regime, and the previous regime has literally the worst track record ever at making signings. They have not made. I tell you what, both combined. Richard Arnold and Ed Woodward, they made one, maybe 2, because Delap is here, and Delap is has come sort of good, and maybe Ahmad. So there's maybe a couple I'm thinking about it, but Bruno Fernandes, Ahmad, but Ahmad's taken some time, and there wasn't any real plan for Ahmad. They just kind of just signed him. But Ahmad has luckily come good for us, and I think that was fortune. Delap was one that they signed. And he's come good for us. But there's so many players they signed that were just not, they were the wrong signing. Whether they're good players or bad players, they're the wrong signing for United, the wrong signing for the Premier League. They're just the wrong signing. There's so many of them. And unfortunately, I would give Rasmus another season, but he is one of those players that fits under the previous regime. So more likely, more than not, he was never the right player that we should have signed, unfortunately. Maybe he can go and be good somewhere else. Maybe he could be of decent somewhere else. But maybe it just wasn't, he wasn't supposed to come to United. So, I don't know. You really are mixing expectations for facts. In what way? Hojlund will grow with an experienced striker ahead of him. I mean, that would be the hope. Again, I think we're being wishful there in terms of that's what we hope, because we want Rasmus to be good and we want Rasmus to be a successful signing, and you do hope that is the case. There is no guarantee, though, but that is sort of the thinking behind it, and that is the hope. So, but again, if we go and get Delap, he's not experienced. So what happens with Rasmus? I would in terms of depth, I would keep Rasmus just to have another striker. Ideally, if you're gonna get Delap, I would get Delap and an experienced striker. I would get 2 strikers, and I would move Rasmus on. If you're gonna get Delap. If not, the other option that I would do is go and get an experienced striker, such as Osimhen or Gyökeres, and give Rasmus one more season. But maybe they don't want to wait because Liam Delap is For example, if you say Liam Delap is your top target, but Liam Delap is available this summer, Liam Delap is there for 40 million. Well, you can't wait till next season to see if Rasmus Hojlund is going to do good or bad. You got to go get Delap this season. So, you know, I mean, I don't know what you're going to do. Glass half empty kind of mentality is not good. X says, I really am pessimistic to this change to the worse. Well, I listen, I don't blame you in a sense, because there's nothing to, I don't blame you for, I don't blame you in that sense. Like, I understand why. I just choose to be the opposite way, because I don't like to be that way, because it just, it's just not something that I necessarily agree with. But I get it, because I mean, there's nothing to say that it's going to be successful. There's nothing to say that, there's nothing tangible. There's many people out there in the world that are like this, that they just, they don't want to hope, because when they hope, they get let down. And when they get let down, they get crushed. And when they get crushed, they end up in a bad place. And I get it. And that's more of a human being thing. Some people, they prefer to be half glass full. Some people prefer to be half glass empty, because when they're let down, they could say at least, like, they weren't hurt. They're less hurt. When you expect less, you're hurt less, because your expectations weren't high. So I get that, and it makes sense. And plus, there's nothing to say that I mean, if you look over the past 13 years, there's nothing there to tell you that the change is going to be successful. If anything, it probably leans more towards it's not going to be successful. But then again, that's a personal thing, and how people determine to go about whatever they choose to do. So it's an individual thing. So I get that. And we could have differences on sort of that, but I think we need to just, for me at least, one thing that I try to dispel is it's okay to have an opinion, and it's okay to have sort of a feeling and a thought, but you have to be careful when saying it in a manner of stating it in a manner of fact. I think when I say that I think, like, and I tend to say, like, I think Ruben Amorim will do better, I think this will go better, but I don't state it in a matter of fact. I don't say Ruben Amorim will 100% do a better job. I just say that I feel and think that it's going to happen. But maybe that's a communication thing. Many people do that sort of thing. I don't know, what that really is, but some people, I think they get crossed in their words, and they just say that it's definitely not going to happen. And maybe it's because I'm reading it, so maybe I'm reading it in that way. But when it's said like that, it sounds like you're saying it as like a 100% statement of fact, that there is no possible way that it will work out. And I just don't think that's fair. I think if you say, I genuinely feel like this isn't going to work out, that sounds much more like an opinion and a sentiment of feeling than a statement of fact. When somebody says, like, for example, when Rajat says Ruben Amorim won't win anything, well, he's making it sound like he knows for 100% fact, which he doesn't, because none of us know, and it's impossible. Not even Ruben Amorim knows that he won't win anything of fact. But if he said, I genuinely feel that Ruben Amorim won't win anything, and it's because this, and this, that makes the statement totally different. So, I get it, but each to their own, I guess. The glass is almost empty. Worst EPL season fact. I mean, again, yeah, but it's the worst EPL season fact for numerous amounts of reasons. So, and I think that at least for some of those reasons won't be reoccurring for next season. It's going to be a different situation. So I don't expect it to get worse. If this is our worst Premier League season ever, then I think that it should be better, because I think some of the circumstances that have led to this season being our worst EPL season ever, they're not going to be playing a factor next season. So they should be different circumstances, and different circumstances should lead to different sort of results. the only right move is to get rid of the Glazers. Well, I agree, but until we figure out how to do that as a fan base, it's kind of pointless to really discuss. We can only go so far to talk about it. Grace says, can't stay. Family is here till Monday. Enjoy the stream. Well, thank you, Grace, for stopping by. Tell the fam we said hello. And we'll probably see you for the Red Devil recap, hopefully. And hopefully you have a good time with your family. Axe says, in thinking that Ineos will turn this around. Well, no, yeah, I mean, and listen, again, I still think that in terms of, I'd rather have them trying to turn it around than have the Glazers continuing to do what they're doing. Because the Glazers hire CEOs. The Glazers live in Florida and America. They don't care about football. They care about American football, if they even care. But they care more about that. They know nothing about it. And you can't have... You can't have people running the club and not knowing what you know, it's a bad business model anyway. It's like you owning a business, right? Like it's like me owning a business. I live in New York. It's like I own a business in the UK. I hire somebody to be the CEO or the manager of the business. And you don't go there. You don't show up there. You don't know what's going on. All you do is like call or get an email from the guy that's running it. You ask him, you know, how's it going? And he just tells you, oh, it's going good. And you go, all right, let me see the numbers. You look at the numbers and you go, all right, the numbers are good. And then that's it. You don't know what's going on there. And you can't run that properly. That doesn't work in any way. So for the Glazers being the financial masterminds that they are, I don't understand how they're operating their so-called business like that, where they just hire a CEO and they completely fuck off. Because what they have now is they have a management group that's actually there, but these guys actually have a stake. They're not a CEO. They have a stake in the club. There is a part owner, and that part owner has his own management team, and they're actually there dealing with shit. So in terms of that circumstance, it's better than what was before. It's closer to what we had when the Glazers took over, because those people like David Gill and others that were there, they were already in charge. That management group was already good. They were already running things and doing things. The Glazers didn't touch them. The Glazers didn't remove them, which is why we continue to be successful, even though they owned the club and did all the fucked up shit that they did. That management team was already there. That management team already had a grip on the ins and outs of Manchester United. Now, when Ferguson retired and they ripped it all up, they just put in a management team that wasn't operating well, and they just let them do whatever they did, and they didn't pay attention to them. They kind of just, I guess they figured that they could let it run like they did with Fergie, but they didn't hire the right people and stuff like that. Just the CEO just being a banker is just to start right off the bat, you know? So, I lost a Pokemon Monopoly. I went to the zoo. Don't talk crap about the law while I'm away. Axe will tell me. No, I think I mentioned how a lot of the signings under the previous regime were very bad ones, and I said Rasmus is potentially could be one because he was signed by them. And then I mentioned off the top of my head, I said, well, they got Diallo right, but it took Diallo a bit, and I think they got a bit lucky with them because they didn't have a plan for Diallo. And I said Bruno was probably the only actual real one that they got right. And then I said also Delap, because Delap has come good and he was from that era. But I was like, all the other ones were pretty much failures or just very, very bad one way or another. So we actually praised Delap while you weren't here, so you'd be happy. But it's too late for me. It's been a long week. Well, yeah, fair enough. I'm getting off anyway, too, because the stream's gone on for 3 hours. But I will bring this up right before we leave. Marcus Rashford will apparently hold showdown talks for Ruben Amorim if he returns to Manchester United this summer. The meeting will aim to clear the air between the two ahead of United's USA preseason tour, and that's coming from the Crossy Daily Star. I will take this one with a pinch of salt coming from the Daily Star. I don't know who the journalist is that reported in the Daily Star. but I don't think there's really any showdown talks to be held. I think it's been already pretty much sorted out. I think Ruben and Rashford have both kind of made their decision. I don't think Ruben wants Marcus at the club, otherwise he wouldn't be on loan. And I think Marcus has decided that he's going to leave Manchester United, otherwise he wouldn't be on loan. We sent him on loan. I don't think there's any resolution of this in any aspect. You know, so I think this is just, I don't think there's anything really in this. Good night, Axe. We'll see you later. Make sure you come for the Red Devil recap. We're not going live tomorrow. We'll be live after the match on Sunday, so make sure you join us. I want to hear from you. But yeah, so I don't think there's anything really in this. I don't think there's much in this. I think this is probably a non-story. I don't think there's anything to clear the air between the two. I think that it's been quite decided already, and it's quite clear because Rashford has been sent on loan. And those decisions have been already made, and I don't think there's actually anything to talk about. So yeah, if you've seen this or you heard about this, I don't think he's coming back. I just don't see any way for it to happen. So yeah, we'll end that there, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, as Lyle says, we can consider Rashford gone. I pretty much consider him gone. I consider him already no longer a United player, even though it's not official, but I just consider him out of, he's out already. He's not part of the future, and I don't really see how he would. And I'm just looking to see if there was some other news, because there was some other news that was breaking right before we went live. And it's just that there is the confirmation supposedly coming from Pete Hall saying that Binder will be starting versus Newcastle. So keep an eye out on that one. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all the news for today and all that stuff. So I will leave you guys here. Thank you guys. Very, very good discussions. Shout out to all the chat members, whether you joined early or late. Very good. Almo was in here. Lyle, RSV, Temiz Gin was in here. Axe came in here as well, and Grace. We missed Lions today, but you know, maybe he's busy, or hopefully he's feeling all right. But yeah, thank you guys. It was a very good show, very good discussion. You guys always keep up the you always keep the discussion going. And again, without you guys, I'd just be a babbling fool here talking to myself. So thank you guys for taking the time to, be in here, chat with me, put out your opinions and stuff like that. I will ask for one more thing. If you can get in the comments after I end the show, because those things help us out as well. And I thoroughly enjoy them anyway. So get in there. I think what we should do is put score predictions for the Newcastle game. Maybe put some changes that you would put, since there is rotation coming from the Newcastle game. Put in what players you would rotate and kind of start with for the Newcastle game. What players you would put in and what players you would drop, and why, if you want. And then we'll put in a little PS Seeker one, since Grace mentioned the zoo. Secret comment that you could add into the football comment, the football related comments, is if you were to go to the zoo, which animal would be your favorite animal to go see? So basically, what animal would you go see first, and why? Out of all the, if you could only go to the zoo and see one animal, what animal would you go see at the zoo? And why? I like that one. Since she brought up the zoo, that was a good one. Lyle says, thanks, Eric. Spicy show today. Yep, it'd be like that sometimes. Sometimes we're a little bit more relaxed. Sometimes it's a little bit spicy. You gotta keep the chat on their toes. But it was a very good discussion. I liked it very much, and it was a good back and forth. So zoos are prisons for animals. They are. I mean, they're held in cages. They're not allowed to roam free. They quite are, in a sense. So yes, but if you were to go to a zoo to see an animal that you really like, and you wanted to see a certain animal, what animal would it be? Let me know. Yes, we should put the glazes there. I 100% agree. We should put the glazes in the zoo and throw peanuts at them, and see how they like it. Yeah, but thank you guys. We'll see you Red Devil recap on Sunday. I never go to the zoo. I've never been to the zoo either, but I do have an animal or two that I would actually like to see up close and personal. And obviously it's a lot less dangerous when you go to the zoo. You know, if you go in the wild, there's some animals that you run quite the risk of losing your life. So like a lion, for example. But it is cool, you know, if you get to see them with your two eyes kind of in person. It's, you know, but cheers to all of you. We'll catch you later. Make sure you get in those comments, and if you didn't hit the like button, make sure you hit that like button, because YouTube wants us to run those likes up. So thank you guys. Be good. Enjoy the rest of your Friday evenings. Enjoy your Saturdays as well, and we'll be back Sunday to discuss United after the match. Thank you guys. Have a good night.